The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Welcome to the show. Today is Monday and we are sort of, well, it's August 6th. I was going to say we're in the middle of August, but I'm rushing things a little bit. But there's a lot going on right now. It's that time of year. I don't know if you guys were watching the Olympics yesterday or watching the Mars rover land. There's been a lot going on. And for a lot of us, we're preparing to send our kids back to school or to send them to school for the first time. It's a very exciting time, but it's a very anxious-filled time. We're going to be with you live for the next 3 hours talking about autism and how we can be more effective, more efficient, and helping a child on the autism spectrum to reach their fullest potential. And we'll cover a wide gamut of subjects here, including how we get our kids ready to go back to school or to go to school for the first time, how we get ourselves ready to do that, how we get our guts comfortable knowing that they're in the right setting, knowing that they're going to be okay, being able to communicate with our children, so that because let's face it, if you're sending a child who can't communicate off to school, look, as a parent, that is the scariest thing in the world to me. I'm lucky in that by the time my son had to walk through a school door, he had been able to start speaking again. But I didn't know that that was going to happen, and I can tell you that it was the most terrifying idea to me. We had Richard Stripp on the show a couple of weeks ago, who was the author of the book, Mommy, I Wish I Could Tell You What They Did to Me Today at School. I know that there are many of you out there that have concerns about what's happening in the classroom, and some of you are like me, that you're really fortunate that I have a really good idea of what's happening in the classroom, because I've been able to, especially early on, I was able to volunteer a lot in my son's school, and they have an open door policy so that I can go in and see, but I know that isn't the case for all of you. So we're going to talk about some different things that we can do at home, some things that we can do for ourselves, and some things that we can do for our kids. We talk a lot here about ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, and there's a really good reason. If you think I'm just nuts about ABA, well, know that I am a little. I'll cop to that, because ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. And the thing that's really remarkable about that is that it doesn't matter where your child is on the spectrum or how old they are. Studies have shown that ABA is effective in changing behavior. It means that you can increase behaviors you want to see more of. So the child being able to sit in the desk and to be able to attend and to use the pencil and write and potentially have conversations with somebody, but absolutely have functional communication skills. We know that ABA has been shown to be effective. It's not a magic pill that you give once and then poof, everything is better. But if you use these very specific tools that we talk about and use them in a very creative, child-specific way, what you will see is that there is progress for all kids. And by the way, it goes for the flip too. If there's a behavior that you want to decrease, ABA is very effective for that. So for those challenging behaviors, I know last week you guys were writing in overwhelmingly about challenging behaviors, and it's the kind of thing that wears you out, right? It takes away your hope. It is so discouraging, right, when you're having to constantly battle challenging behavior. But here's what I want you to know, that ABA is something that's very effective. You use these tools very creatively, and you can diminish or extinguish, get rid of some of those challenging behaviors, if not all of them. So that's a really fun thing. But, there's a lot more to life than just ABA. So we talk about things, all things having to do with autism, and a lot of things towards getting that ABA, because I mentioned it's not a magic pill. You got to be able to do it over a long period of time with a certain amount of frequency. In fact, we know that for younger kids, 25 to 40 hours a week is really what's going to be ideal. 25 to 40 hours a week. I know my son had that. And I remember saying to people, well, we're doing ABA therapy 40 hours a week that first year. And people said, 40 hours a week? That's a full-time job. You betcha. And guess what? For a parent, making sure that the 40 hours can happen in whatever configuration you're working, that's another full-time job, right? Getting prepared for it, emotionally dealing with it, financially dealing with it. So we talk about all those things on the show. And the thing is, I want you to know I am a parent. I am not a board-certified behavior analyst. I'm not an expert in ABA. I am not an expert in autism. I'm not an expert in car mechanics, nutrition, or any of those lovely things, right? I am an ex-school teacher, and I'm the mom of a 9-year-old who was diagnosed with autism when he was 2.5, started ABA intensively from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders right after he turned 3. And he's doing remarkably. And he is about to start 4th grade, completely included, has been completely included since kindergarten, even though when he was diagnosed, I was told to let go of that was not going to happen, that he would be very happy in a special day classroom. My son has never been in a special day classroom. There are still things he's working on. He's a work in progress, like his mother. And he's delightful, and I get to have conversations with him, a child who lost all of his language. So I want you to know that I'm here out of pure passion to help you. Whatever you need, the questions that you have, things that you want to ask experts, please allow me to be your conduit. I'm not the expert, but I'm hooked up with a lot of experts here on your behalf. So you can write in, call in. We'll talk about some of these different ways and ask your question. And sometimes we'll give you the ability to ask the expert yourself. Other times, depending on your schedule, I'll ask the question for you and we'll get the answer to you. So how do you participate? If you're watching us right now on autism-live.com, then you'll see on the screen, it says Shannon is answering, and there's a little ... There's a box underneath it that says your questions. It should be live right now. My computer is having a little bit of a, I don't know. It's having a moment, I see before me. So it should be live right now. If it's not, it will be very soon. And you can type in your question. You don't have to log in. Nobody's asking for your credit card number or your address or your email address. We're not going to spam you because we don't. We don't have your email address. All you have to do is type in your question, and it's free. And isn't that a lovely thing? And then we chase down the answer for you, find the expert, and get you hooked up with the answer or another question, or at least a partial answer to your question. Because let's face it, we don't know everything, right? But there's a lot that we do know. So don't be shy. There is no wrong or bad or, unintelligent question, right? Ask away. And sometimes the questions you ask, let other people know the questions they can ask. Asking the question, we're going to talk about this in a little while, asking the right question is sometimes the key to everything. So ask away. Now, if you're watching us on any of the other ways you can watch us, or you're watching us on Autism Live and it says rebroadcast, then the question box is not active. It means I'm not here. But we have some other ways for you to get in touch with us. You can be emailing us right now on our Gmail account right here. You can see on the screen. Email away. We will get your email. We will cover it on the next available live show, and we will send you a written response. And I know many of you have been writing in and saying that you have a topic idea or you'd like to be on the show. We love that, by the way. So write in because we're really excited to talk to you. Okay, so that's email. You can also phone in. In fact, if you want to phone in during the live show, we're live from 9 a.m. to noon Pacific Standard Time, Monday through Friday. And if you want to phone into the live show, you and I can have a conversation. There's nothing I enjoy more than a good phone conversation. So feel free to call into the show. If we're not live, you can call that number and leave a message, and we'll get back to you as soon as we're back in the live studio. You can also Skype in with us. If you want to Skype into the live show, you can do that. We're going to be Skyping in a little while internationally. Gotta love that. So wherever you are in the world, and we know that you guys are watching from 103 different countries. We love that. So you can Skype in from wherever you are. We enjoy having the opportunity to talk to you. If you have camera on your computer, we can have your picture with us as well as you talk to us. So during the 11 o'clock hour, we are going to be Skyping with somebody so you can see how that works. You can also get a hold of us via Facebook. We have a new Facebook page that's called Autism Live. We appreciate all of your likes on that page. And we have a lot of information on that page, so I hope you'll check it out. You can answer the question of the day there. You can pose a question. You can comment on any of the interviews, put a question after one of them. Really enjoy interacting with you on Facebook and encourage you to interact with others that you see on Facebook. I know you guys are already doing that in droves, and it really makes me very happy to see you guys interacting on Facebook. And you can also tweet with us. We enjoy talking to you on Twitter. I am still a novice in training on Twitter, but that's okay. You guys are fetching me up on it, so that's a really good thing. Now, I mentioned that there are other ways to watch the show. We're trying to make the show as easy for you to find and participate in as possible. And this came about actually from a viewer saying, look, sometimes I have OT and I can't be there to watch the live show, and I miss the show in the rotation. How can I be watching old shows or search topics? So we were able to start putting ourselves in lots of different sites for you to be able to do that. You can watch us on Blip TV. We have a whole channel there that you can go in, search topics, go back and say, I missed Thursday's show. I missed when they had Holly Robinson Pete on. I missed whatever. Search the topics and find the information that you want on Blip TV. You can also do that, by the way, on our very own YouTube channel. We have a lot of videos there so that you can pick and choose, and sometimes it's ideal on iTunes, or I'm about to talk about iTunes, but on YouTube you can search a specific topic, watch just a few minutes at a time, whatever works for you, pause, rewind, all those things. I did mention iTunes because we are a free download on iTunes. So please feel free, and while you're there, do me a favor and give us a review. Good, bad, or indifferent, we just love getting reviews on iTunes. You know what? And it actually is helpful to other parents because when you do reviews, it helps us be more visible on iTunes. So that's a way that you can help the population at large, for another parent someplace far, far away to be able to find us because of your review. And we are available on Ustream. I don't know if you guys were watching Ustream last night when they were showing the Mars rover land. My child, we let him stay up. I am so anxious for the Olympics and the Mars rover stuff to be over so that bedtime can go back to a reasonable time. I don't know about the rest of you, but you know, when history is being made, my parents got me up to watch Neil Armstrong walk on the moon I know I'm that old. But my father came and said, come on, you're going to miss this. This is history in the making. And so there's been a lot of history in the making this week that my child's been up for, and school starts in a week and a half. Bad parenting. What are you going to do? In any case, as I said, we're going to be here for the next 3 hours talking about a lot of different topics, and we hope that you will participate with us. I like to start every morning with something that we call here in the studio jargon of the day. There's a reason, and I'm just realizing that I have all these computer issues today. Give me 1 second here because I want to bring this up for you. So that you can see it. Jargon of the day is, so we have to make friends with jargon, right? We have to take it one word, one phrase at a time so that we can learn what these terms are that everybody is always talking to us about our children, right? We'll go to a meeting and we'll say something about our child and say, oh, by the way, we're working on this, that, or whatever. And you pretty much have to stop the meeting and say, I'm sorry, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? And then they start to explain what they're talking about, but they use more jargon terms that you don't understand, right? It just mires everything in the mud. So we've got to make friends with the jargon. I know. Sometimes it just seems like it's never ending because it kind of is. But if we do it a little bit at a time, just like we teach our children, and try to make it as pleasant as possible, or at least as painless as possible, we will find that over time we will get to know these terms and just have them roll off our tongues. I always said that if I ever get to the point where I just say perseverate in a sentence, somebody smack me. And I do now. I say perseverate, and I say, oh, I find that really reinforcing. And people look at me like, what rock did you crawl out from under? The BCBA rock. But you know what? It's a fascinating journey, and we learn from it, and it's just more knowledge, right? Knowledge is power. Okay, so today's term is echoics. And you look at this and you go, all right, I see a root word in there that kind of makes a little bit of sense to me, but let's put it in some context. Let's give you the actual definition of echoics. An elementary verbal operant, there we go, more jargon, involving a response that is evoked by a verbal discriminative stimulus that has point-to-point correspondence and formal similarity with the response. My case in point, really? Really? This is how we're going to explain this word. Well, when you make friends with the jargon, there's a certain amount of this that makes sense. But is there an easier way that we can say this so we can understand it? I hope so. Let's take a look at our working definition. Working definition is repeating something immediately after it's said. Isn't that easier? So when we work, and let's put it in context with our kids, when we work on speech, when we're developing language with a child, we will go through a period of time when we are going to work on echoics. This is when we're going to say something, we're going to make a sound or a word or whatever, and we're going to ask the child to mimic it, to just say it right backwards. So they're not having to think up the word, they're just simply doing the mechanics of the word. So, for instance, if I say, and this is something we do with all children, not just children with on the autism spectrum. If you stop and think about a typically developing child, and sometimes the child will engage in it on their own volition, a typically developing child. So, you keep saying binky, 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 and eventually the baby goes baby, 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 right? They make the b sound, and everybody gets all excited. Everybody goes, oh, they're talking, right? And all the baby was doing was echoing. But they were starting to make a sound, and the fact that we went gazongo and went, yay, the baby is talking, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, if the baby is typically developing, a lot of times they find that reinforcing and they go, oh, I don't know why they got so happy, but I think I'll do that some more. All right, here's the problem with our kids on the spectrum. That, sometimes they aren't making the ba at all, that phase doesn't even happen, or they make the ba and we go, oh, the baby is talking, and instead of being reinforcing, the is aversive, that they go, everybody's screaming and it hurts my ears and I don't think I'll do that again, right? So we got a lot of different issues going on there. But what we want to do is go back through the phases that a typically developing child acquires language, and we just want to tweak a couple of things so that we make it reinforcing for the child. So echoics is a part of gaining language. It's, if we're going to start to work, and we're talking a lot about functional communication skills today, but echoics is one of the very basic, simple things to do. And I know parents get so frustrated, especially if you have a 5-year-old who's not speaking, and you start ABA and you go, I want to get to language. I want to communicate with my child. I want my child to speak to me. I want my child to be able to say, I love you. I don't like that. I want to play this. You want your child to speak. But you kind of have to go through the building blocks again, and echoics is a part of that. And I know it's a very frustrating thing when a child is 5 and you're saying, say bubbles, and the child goes bubba, right? And it doesn't feel like it's as exciting. It will the first time because you go, okay, we heard sound. But it is frustrating because you're going, they're 5, they're so far behind, right? I want you to keep in mind that you got to go through all the stages. That the truth is that a typically developing child would have gone through that phase sometime between 9 months and 2 years old. Yeah, you're behind. Feel the emotion of that. Feel the frustration of that. But when you're behind, you still have to run the race, right? And maybe you end up the same place. Maybe you end up just short of where your attention was if you hadn't had to, catch things up. But in any case, you're making progress. So we have to go these baby steps again, and echoics is a really important part of that. I would remind you too that we always reward approximations, that in echoics, the expectation that even a 5-year-old, right, that we're trying to get them to speak, they're not going to have the musculature to have it be completely recognizable in most cases. So we reward approximations with echoics, just like we would that baby that we said, binky, 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 and the baby went blah, blah, right? Yay, right? Any attempt to mimic the sound in echoics, we want to make it reinforcing. Now, what's reinforcing to the child? Is it going, yay, or is it, tickling them, or is it giving them a toy or giving them a preferred food? It has to be what's actually reinforcing to that individual child. And we know our kids are all different. So think that through. What's reinforcing to your child? Okay, but repeating something immediately after it's said, that's echoics. When you hear somebody saying, we're going to work on echoics with your child, don't panic. It's step 1 of 374 steps, but it's an important step. It's like that crawling before you walk thing, okay? All right, moving forward, we always have a question of the day for you. Question of the day meant to get you thinking. I love today's question of the day. I looked at it this morning and I was like, yay, I like this one. Because these are the kinds of things that make me happy to think about. If you had $1 million, wouldn't that be nice to have $1 million just laying around to donate? Somebody just said to you, I'm going to give you $1 million, but here's the rub. You don't get to keep it. You get to donate it. Lovely, lovely. To any autism charity. Who would you give it to and why? I want to hear from you guys. Recently there was a whole controversy with 50 Cent, the rapper, and he made some comments that were just, ignorant. There's the word, ignorant. And my comment, and then he apologized and said, I'm really sorry if anybody was offended. Oh, thank you. And a lot of people were saying, look, damage done. It's that thing like in the play Doubt where they talk about when you rip open a pillow and feathers go everywhere, and afterwards you try to collect all the feathers. You're never going to catch all the feathers, right? The feathers are still out there. And when people say things like that and then they go, oh, I'm sorry afterwards, it really doesn't quite even out what happened. So my suggestion was, if you want to seem sincere, Mr. 50 Cent, then give some money to some autism charities. And I made some suggestions of some autism charities, some of which you guys fully, wholeheartedly agreed with, and others of you wrote in and said, no, I would give it to. So I'm opening up the forum here. If you had $1 million to give to any autism charity, shout out which autism charities would you give it to. And I said 5 that I'm really fond of. Of course, I love ACT Today, Autism Care and Treatment Today, because they give grants to things that families want. And $1 million, and especially they have a military initiative for kids whose parents are serving in the military. But they also give to families who aren't serving in the military. I just think it's awesome because the parents get to decide, if the parents say, well, we feel like what we need is a trampoline because that vestibular motion, them jumping up and down, we get to more speech. Because for some kids, that's the truth. We noticed early on that when we would take our child to Disneyland and spin him on all the rides, we had more speech for days afterwards, right? And it just made him more productive. He had such a good time and he worked towards Disneyland. It made him more productive in his lessons. That's not the case for all kids. For some kids, that thing of having an iPad and being able to communicate through the iPad or play the game, they just learn so much better. For other families, it's a fence. You desperately need a fence, or you need money to get the diagnosis, whatever it is. So I love ACT Today for that. Of course, we had Holly Robinson Pete on the other day. Her Holly Rod Foundation, such a wonderful organization. I love what they're trying to do to make a one-stop shop for families to be able to come in and get all the help and support. I just think that's such a great idea. Of course, we had Deborah Husseini on the other day from the Art of Autism that are helping children, teenagers, and adults to get their artwork out there and in some cases support themselves being artists. Come on, you gotta love that. And she works very closely with Inclusion Films, who I did not include on the list, and I really should have because I love them. That's Joey Travolta's organization that teaches kids how to be a part of filmmaking and gives them real working skills and self-esteem and all these wonderful things. But I also mentioned Areva Martin's Special Needs Network. What a wonderful organization that is, that they really help that underserved population. And one of the things that they do that I love is that they talk to parents about job placement and if they need to change their career so that they can be able to be there for the therapy, because let's face it, this is financially devastating on all planes, right? And for a lot of us, myself included, my job changed. I had to work from home so that my son could do ABA, and I had never done anything that was conducive to working home. So they give counseling to parents and give them sometimes training for jobs, help them to, job placement and skills for that kind of thing. And of course, I mentioned Autism Speaks. We had Mark Sirkin from Autism Speaks with us last week, and they do so much towards research, but also helping, we would not be where we are in terms of insurance reform had it not been for the push that Autism Speak gave. So, and that's going to mean that hundreds of thousands of more kids get ABA without it breaking their parents' backs financially. You gotta love that, right? You can't understate how important that is. So a lot of really incredible autism charities, but I know there are more. I know that you guys know things that I don't know. So this is the ideal time. Shout out, who are the charities that you love and why? Why are they doing such a great job? Coming up in the fall, they're going to do the Night of 1,000 Stars. Again, this is the wonderful evening that Jon Stewart always hosts in New York City. And he gets a bunch of his comedian friends to come in, and they just sort of back to back. It's sort of the comic relief for autism. And they raise money for, I think, 300 different charities on the East Coast. I think actually this year they're expanding, so they're not just on the East Coast. But what are the charities that you would give money to? So give them a shout out. Okay, that's our question of the day. Now, we always have a topic of the day, and our topic of the day this week, we were promising this the last couple of weeks because you guys have been writing in about this, teaching functional communication. That on this path towards, come on, let's be honest here, we all want our kids to be able to speak, right? And for the vast majority of our children, that's going to be possible. Okay, the other side of that equation is that for some of our kids, it's not going to be possible. And I will say that for a lot of our kids that it is possible, it's not going to be easy, right? It's going to be something that takes time and work and effort. But no matter what we're doing, whether it's a child that it's going to take some work, or a child that it's going to take a little bit of work, or a child that we don't know yet whether it's going to be possible, we always, in all cases, can teach functional communication. Functional communication is that even if I'm not speaking, I have the ability to tell you what I need and what I want, and I have the ability to understand what it is that you're asking me to do. And we can, this is the good news, we can get to this point with absolutely all of our kids on the autism spectrum. When we do that, we diminish challenging behavior, we give our kids a voice. It may not be the voice we had planned on, but the truth of the matter is that when we teach functional communication skills, we, in a lot of cases, in the vast majority of the cases, we diminish that challenging behavior, give them that initial voice, which then helps us, it lays the fertile ground on which for us to teach speech. So don't think that teaching functional communications is that somebody has given up. It's quite the contrary. Okay. So we're going to talk about that all week long, and through some of the different things we're going to talk about, and we're going to be asking experts about it, teaching functional communication skills. Okay, to that end, some of the things we're going to talk about today, we have a stress tip coming up today, and this is a lovely, lovely thing this week that somebody had said to me, because my stress has been ratcheting it up the last couple of weeks, and I keep, trying to ratchet it down and trying all the things that we always talk about here, and somebody said something to me that really really had an impact on me over the weekend, so I can't wait to share that with you. We're going to talk about setting our kids up for success at school, how important that is, and what we can be doing in these couple of weeks before school starts to set them up for success. Hopefully we're going to have time to get to our DTT NET tip for the week, but we are having at least one special guest, it may be two, today during the 11 o'clock hour. We're going to be joined by Rupert Isaacson from Horseboy. This is a really amazing organization, and it was brought to my attention that they recently held a camp that was called the Surf and Turf Camp, and they took a group of kids and that qualified for this camp, and they spent a period of time with them, several days, where they would do horseback riding and then go surfing. And I'm so excited to be able to talk to Rupert a little later on today during the 11 o'clock hour. He's going to be Skyping in to us from Great Britain, and I believe he has just arrived there via plane, and he's jet lagged, but he's going to get on Skype with us to talk about what happened at this camp and to let you know why this is a good thing and that you should know about it, because there'll be things coming up in the future that could involve your child. A really amazing organization. So again, that's Rupert Isaacson from Horseboy. He's going to join us at 11 o'clock. We're trying to, I hope we're going to have somebody from the surf end of it as well, whether it's today or another day, and we're trying to work that out, even at this late hour. We'll see what happens. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it's time for the stress tip of the week. I need it. Stick with us. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Grandpichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah. Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Teacher has some glasses.
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable and recovery from autism is possible.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're going to talk about the stress tip of the day while I'm a stress ball at the moment because my computer's having a seizure. But other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, right? Well, look, we talk about stress every week because it's a part of this, right? It's an undeniable part of this journey that as parents, as teachers, as practitioners, there's going to be some stress that comes with the autism journey. So we have to figure out how to manage it, how to deal with it, how to accept it, how to move through it, past it, under it, over it somehow, because we've got work to do. We've got things that we've got to do, and the stress is a constant thing that's preventing us from getting to what we really want to do. And, we can poo-poo it and say, well, just make it go away, right? But sometimes that just doesn't work. In fact, 90% of the times that just doesn't work. We always talk about take 3 deep breaths, that there's nothing that 3 deep inhales and exhales can't help, right? It can't solve it, but it can help it because then we're clearer and functioning and getting the air to our brains and to our other parts of our body. But one of the things that somebody said to me the other day when I was right here with the stress, they said, you're not asking the right questions. And I said, what do you mean, not asking the right question? I always talk about how important it is to ask questions and that sometimes you don't know what the right question is. And they said to me, it's that whole thing of asking the positive assumptive, that if you say to yourself, why does this always happen? Then the answer that you will come up with is because it's always going to happen because, which is going to make room for it to always happen. And ask the right question. Like, how can I make this work? That's a right question. And the question that they suggested that I ask myself on a daily basis is, how can I be kind to myself today? Oh. Because we were talking about my child, and I said, well, he had a rough day today, that this, and this happened. And I was saying in the course of things, and I said, so, I'm just trying to make things a little bit easier for him today. I'm just trying to be a little extra kind. We're, making the plate a little bit more colorful and exciting and making sure that I give him food that he likes and be a little extra kind, give him a little extra attention, a little extra praise, because he had a rough day. And the person was saying, well, that's really interesting. Do you ever do that for yourself? I said, what you talk about with us? What would the day be like if I asked myself the question in the morning, how can I be kind to myself today? Now, I will tell you that I did this little experiment yesterday. I had a lot of stuff that I needed to do yesterday, not the least of which was 7 loads of laundry, right? I'm a mom. And, and I could have woken up and thought, oh man, I got to do 7 loads of laundry, right? But instead, I said I would try this. That I got up yesterday morning and thought, okay, how can I be kind to myself today? What can I do to be kind? And it led to me doing a couple of things that I always say, oh, I should do this, I should do that, I should do that, but that I don't always take the time to do because I'm just in the hustle and bustle. And so I drank more water yesterday, and I took the time to do what I do for my son. I squeezed a little bit of lemon juice in it, so it just tasted that much better. And I took the time to, give myself, as Evelyn Gould always says on the show, to give myself some space so that I didn't have to rush through everything, that I didn't have this goal of having the laundry done by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That I said, something that I could do to be kind to myself is to make sure that the laundry is done and folded and put away, because I love it when the laundry is done and put away. So it was just interesting how when I asked the question, how can I be kind to myself today, instead of feeling like, oh, I have to do the laundry, I was like, ooh, wouldn't it be great if the laundry were done and folded and put away? How lovely would that be for me today? How lovely would that be for me this week? And I've been, driving myself crazy because I just don't manage to pack a lunch before I come to work here. And I was standing there, and this is something I've been saying, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And I stood there last night and said, how can I be really kind to myself today? And I packed myself a lunch. While I was putting away all the dinner stuff, I just packed myself a lunch. It took me 7 seconds, and it was a really kind, gentle, nice thing to do for myself today. I didn't allow myself to get stressed by the idea, well, I should do this, but it was, ooh, I have an opportunity to do this, to be as nice to myself as I want to be to my husband and to my son. So just a little thing to put in your mind for today, that it does help. How can I be kind to myself today? There were people that I didn't want to deal with yesterday, and I thought, well, that's a kind thing. I'm not going to deal with that. I'm just going to do what I need to do. That's what I would do for anybody else. I would say, cut yourself some slack, for heaven's sake. You don't have to be all things to all people, and be kind to yourself. Put a little lotion on, take a breath, take a moment. Wouldn't we do that for our kids? If they were struggling for something, we pat their back and go, it's okay. You're doing a good job. Why can't we do that for ourselves? So just a thing that I pass on to you, not my idea, somebody else gave this to me, but to be asking the question, how can I be so kind to myself today? I don't have to be, there's things you still have to do, right? But while you're doing them, ask yourself, how can I be kind to myself today? I know that I got to do X, Y, and Z, but while I'm doing that, does it mean putting some music on to do that? Okay, I got a pile of dishes to do. Our dishwasher broke yesterday. So I'm washing by hand, which, I've done a lot of in my life. But I put some music on, and suddenly it was a very being kind to myself kind of thing, which kind of had repercussions. So good repercussions. So it's a wonderful thing to stop and think about. I'm trying to do it for myself today. Ratchet the stress down. Take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself today. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we have our language tip for the week, so stick with us.
ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, was founded in 2004 by several passionate parents who believe that access to early, effective treatment is vital for individuals with autism. Together with Dr. Doreen Graham-Pache, the world's leading provider of therapy for autism, this group created ACT Today to do just as the name implies, take action immediately to treat autism spectrum disorders.
A lot of families and parents and even physicians don't yet accept the fact that we are recovering children with autism.
In 2006, inspired by her struggle to get treatment for her young son Wyatt, television producer and author Nancy Alspaugh Jackson and her husband Reed hosted a backyard benefit for the foundation called Denim and Diamonds for Autism. Tens of thousands of dollars were raised, and in 2008, Alspaugh Jackson took the helm of ACT Today as executive director.
This country has to come together to save a generation of children.
With a dedicated board of directors, a small but committed staff called the A-Team, as in autism, ACT Today is making a huge difference in the lives of children across the country. Grants that fund programs for behavior therapy, special needs schools, and summer camps. Medical needs like diagnostic tests and special diets. Basic safety equipment such as helmets for children who repetitively bang their heads, and fencing for those who wander. Assisted technologies and assistance dogs.
Hi, my name is Max, and I love my iPad too. It's so great. I can take photos.
In 2010, ACT for Military Families became the first national campaign to benefit military children with autism.
I'm Joe Montaigne. As a father of a daughter with autism, I know the challenges that brings.
ACT Today continues to educate and raise national awareness on the need for early and intensive intervention for an epidemic that affects at least 1 in 110 children.
I called on November 1st. And I'm like, how am I going to get notified? How are you going to let me know? And they ended up looking, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above.
ACT Today, fulfilling its mission of helping families with autism, one child at a time.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. I love seeing that picture of the little boy kissing his mom. It's a wonderful thing. Okay, it's time for the language tip of the week. We are talking this week in particular about functional communication skills and how important it is to teach all of our children functional communication skills. So what does that mean? That when we say that a child doesn't have functional communication skills, they literally have no means of telling you what they want. There's no gesturing, there's no pointing, there's no eye contact happening, there's no utterances, because if a child is going, right? That is functional communication skills. You don't know exactly what it is that they want, and you want to hone that, right? And there are ways to, by the way, to hone that into getting something that's more concrete so that you know which thing they're at, right? We've all been there and been in that frustrating moment of the child who is clearly distressed, who is clearly like, why can't, you people just understand that what I want is this? And you're standing there going, baby, I wish I knew, but I don't, tell me. And they can't, right? But we can work up to that. And there are lots of different things that we can do, whether it be an assisted device like an iPad or another device, or the PECs, or another iconic communication system where they have a picture that they can choose from and point to, right? But it's so important that we give them functional communication skills. We were on vacation a couple of weeks ago, and we went to see Mystere, which is a Cirque du Soleil show, and it was a very big deal because my son loves to go to theater. My husband and I, our background is in theater, but it was expensive. I'm just going to say that. It was so expensive that I'm choking, but it was worth it. Let me just also say that. But I was a nut about, we got to get there early. They said to be there early, that there's some stuff that happens beforehand. I want to be in the seats. If we're paying this much, I don't want to miss a minute of it, right? And so we went in, and I thought I heard a baby crying in the audience. And I may have already told the story. I can't remember if I did. But I thought I heard a baby crying. And my son has always been somebody that's just a thing with him, a sensory thing with him. He hears a baby crying and he's distressed. Even when he was a baby, if he heard another baby crying, he would get upset. And when he did have language again, he would say, do something, there's a baby crying. He always wanted, he just can't stand it. He's going to have a hard time as a parent. I got to get him around a bunch of babies that are crying and convince him that it's their functional communication skills. But anyway, he was like, there's a baby crying. Is the baby okay? And I said, yeah, the baby's okay. They just need a diaper change, or they need to be patted, or they need to be whatever. And we kept hearing this sound of this very, distressed baby, we thought. And then it became clear, we sort of, the sound keeps coming, and you kind of hone in, you orient to where the sound is. And we saw that in the special seating that there were a couple who had a young woman who was probably in her late teens, early 20s, and clearly had special needs. I don't want to diagnose, have no idea, but was non-verbal in terms of non-vocal, let's say that, didn't have speech. And so she was making these noises that sounded like a baby crying. And of course, once we realized where she was, we were watching what was happening, and she was greatly distressed. And being the person sitting further away, it's so much easier when you're not emotionally involved, right? Because it was so abundantly clear to me that she wanted out of the chair. She just desperately wanted out of the chair. The show hadn't started yet, and she was in great distress. And I assume it was her parents, but you don't know who it was, but they were both very kind and considerate and loving, and talking to her and trying to convince her and petting her arms and saying, it's okay, just stay. And she was making the noises and pushing, and she was shoving with her hand and trying to get up, right? And you could see that the longer it went on, the more distressed the parents or whoever they were feeling, and the more distress that the girl was feeling. And you could see that there was embarrassment and just, the hopelessness of the parents, that they were, you know, I could hear at one point whoever the woman was in the relationship saying to her, you know, just tell us, and you know, is it this or is it that? And the frustration on all of them that they did not know what exactly the issue was. And eventually there was the moment where they capitulated and said, okay. And they didn't get up, but they removed their hands, and the girl shot up out of the chair. And the minute she was out of the chair and she was walking for the door, the noises had all stopped, and you could just see the relief on her face. And the couple, you know, collected their things and they left. And you know, I have no idea what happened when they went outside. I have no idea what the true issue was. But, you know, I was really struck, especially after we just had Richard Stripp, author of, you know, Mommy, I Wish I Could Tell You What They Did to Me at School Today. And if you read his book, he took a bunch of case studies of individual children that he knew personally and had an opportunity to work with or observe in a school setting. And he would tell incidents from the child's point of view. And then he would talk as the professional about what it was like viewing it. But it was so interesting because from the child's point of view, you know, sometimes they're, and of course, this is, you know, he doesn't know exactly what the child wanted, but he observed and did some things and is very compassionate and considerate. And I don't think it's a huge leap, what he was saying, because the child's behavior would change when other things would happen, when they would get what it was that they wanted. So I was kind of looking at it through that filter and saying, okay, she clearly wanted up and out, but did she want to leave the theater forever? Did she want at some point to necessarily come back? And this is the frustration for those of us who, you know, are trying to deal with somebody who does not have functional communication skills, that you're not going to know for sure. Like, was it that she just, you know, I've been sitting in a theater before and thought, I need to walk around for a minute. I got something on my mind and I need to go walk around for a minute before I can settle in and watch the show. Now, there have been times that I've said I need to go walk around and I'm not coming back. Right? That has happened to me before. But, you know, or you imagine you're sitting there and you go, I need to go to the bathroom. I need to use the restroom, and I need to do it in a hurry, even though I just used it. Sometimes that happens. Life, right? And you go to the bathroom and you come back. And the joy that we all, I mean, the miraculous thing that we're able to do that of our own volition, and that if we're not, that we're able to say something. I just, you know, went yesterday morning to the farmer's market with my son, and he was getting agitated in the backseat of the car the whole way that we were there, and he was like, oh, you know. And as we were pulling into the farmer's market, he said, Mom, I'd like to go home. And I said, you would? Why do you want to go home? You love going to the farmer's market. He said, I don't know, I want to go home. And I said, well, you know, what's going on? And we had a whole conversation, and as we pulled the car in, he said, you know what? I got to go to the bathroom, and I got to go right now. Right? And bless his little heart, you know, we ran up to the bathrooms, and he was able to use the bathroom, and he felt worlds better, and we went and enjoyed the farmer's market. Now, if I rewind 5 years and put that circumstance with a child who didn't have functional communication skills, what would have happened was he would have started when he started feeling uncomfortable, he would have started screaming in the back seat. He would have just screamed and screamed and screamed. And I wouldn't have known what to do. And then but I would have attempted to go to the farmer's market anyway, because, you know, we were there, right? And he would have been having a fit and been running around and doing things that I couldn't understand, because he didn't understand what he needed to do and had no way of telling me, I need to go to the bathroom and I need to go urgently. And then later on, if he had still been in diapers, afterwards I would have gone, oh, that's what was going on. That's what he was going through. But I just want to make the point that teaching the functional communication skills so important. So, you know, how do we do that with our kids? Well, I think it's best to be working with a professional, but there are different things that you can be starting at home. Maybe in a minute here we'll show the Andy Bondi interview that Andy Bondi and his wife started the PECS, the Picture Exchange Communication System, and they have an amazing array of things. There are free apps on your phone and on your tablet devices that you can do that allow for your child to be able to push a picture of something and it says words so that they can show you, what they want. But there are very specific ways of teaching these things, and I do think that it's best to be working with a professional to start. I just was having a conversation with somebody the other day about the fact that both of our children are done having therapy at this point in time, and we were saying how much we miss having other people come in and start a lesson. That there is just something so efficient. We can teach our children things. We absolutely can. We are empowered to do so, and the tools are available online, things like CARD learning and skills. But it is infinitely easier in the beginning when somebody else starts the skill and we get to pick it up, because we don't have to get through the whole baggage of being a parent with the child. We can do it, but it's just faster, I think, when you got somebody else start it. And so with something as important as functional communication skills, I'm going to recommend that you have somebody come in and start it. Maybe you don't have them for a long period of time if that's not in your financial wheelhouse, if you don't have insurance coverage, if you don't have a regional center or another funding source, but have somebody come in and start working on it so that you've got a good basic place to start. And usually for something like PECS or other iconic communication systems, you're going to have 2 people in the beginning anyway, because you have to have somebody who's a facilitator. So start functional communication skills. It's a really, really beneficial thing. So that takes some of the guesswork out of what's happening with your child. It's a powerful, powerful gift that you can give to your children. Okay, and a lot of the time, in fact, in the vast majority of the time, it leads to speech. When a child sees, oh, if I point to the toilet picture, you take me to the toilet, then the trust begins to build, they begin to calm, they don't have to tantrum. You are in a better centered place, and you see that conversations start to happen, and they become infinitely more amenable to being taught, that they're willing to sit there and learn something, and then you get to a coax. So you're pointing to the picture of the toilet, and you say, toilet, and they go, as they're pointing to it. Well, that's the beginning. And then they get to toilet, or they get bathroom, or pee, or whatever the word is that you want, right? Different strokes for different folks. But you build from there, and it becomes reinforcing for them. If they know they're going to get what they need by doing it, they're going to be more likely to do it. And it is easier than throwing yourself in a tantrum. Listen, for that girl when we were at the theater, I know that if she had had an easier way to say, I want out, other than having to make that noise and pushing, she would have, the sheer distress on her face and in her voice, and when she finally stood up and the way she walked out of that theater, she was just like, oh, I'm free at this point, I know that if she had had a way to be able to say that, whether it was, to type it on a keyboard or to point to something, it would have been so much quicker for her and saved everybody all that frustration. So functional communication skills, it's where it's at. So, and reward those approximations, right? We got to make it reinforcing. Okay, it is time for a new episode of The A Word. This is the wonderful documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who is now 3, who's been getting, he was diagnosed with autism at 2. He's been getting ABA therapy for about 8 months at this point. Let's look in and see what's happening with Jack Riley this week. This is The A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
This is day 3 of potty training. Well, we think he's learning to pee on the potty. No big successes yet, and lots of accidents. Here is the laundry from today.
Ready?
25 weeks ago, Jack Riley had a huge breakdown when Jessica asked him to sit down, a direction that's usually very easy for him to do. At the time, no one knew he had to go potty. He didn't have the language to tell his parents or Jessica that he needed time.
Jack, what are you doing?
You're pooping? Oh, okay.
Jump to 4 weeks ago, and you can see he is now able to communicate what he needs when a demand is placed on him, instead of tantruming like he did before when he didn't have language.
Okay. How do you know when a kid's ready for potty training?
So, a couple of the prerequisites to know when a kiddo is ready is they wake up dry in their pull-up or diaper. And when they actually do go in their pull-up or diaper, like during the day when they're awake, they let you know that they went number 1 or number 2, depending on what it is.
It's like you have no choice but to pee.
Let's do it. Help.
No, I can't help you pee.
Help.
I can hold your hand, but I can't help you pee.
So the purpose of the potty log is just to see how long it takes them as soon as they sit on the potty for them to actually urinate, and the amount of time that he's able to hold his urine. And with the log, we're able to visually see how long it takes them each time, and if they have accidents or not. He's on a half-hour potty schedule, so if he doesn't go when we take him, then we have to take him in 10 more minutes. So every 10-minute intervals until he does go, and then we reset the clock, and it's 30 minutes again.
Okay, buddy. Okay, last chance to go pee-pees. Do we reset it for 10?
Oh, what does that mean? What does that mean, Jack? It's potty time! We can come play after. Hurry!
Uh-oh, he wet himself.
We can reset to half an hour now.
To make sure Jack Riley uses the potty regularly, they have been giving him lots of fluids and salty foods.
There it is. Let's go. All right, let's go. What do you have to do? You have to put your pee-pee in the potty. Okay, give it a shot. See if you can put it in there. There you go. You're doing it. Yay, Jack.
Big prayer for your pee-pee.
Big prayer for your pee-pee. Yay! Woo! Yay! Good job. What a big boy! High five! High five! High five! High five! High five! High five!
Welcome back. That was the A word. And yeah, I know. It's so funny. Show this to any other community in the world and they'd be like, all right, we're all watching a video of the waist up from the boy going pee-pee in the potty and getting excited about it and grinning like idiots. I make no apologies whatsoever because we all know on this journey, that's huge. That's exciting. I could watch that all day long and there's nothing wrong with that. To see that child be so thrilled. When we get potty training, I gotta say, it's such a self-esteem for our kids, and it's life-changing. I know somebody had written in recently about what skills their child, that was the question of the day, what skills has your child gained and how has it changed your life? And somebody wrote in and said, we are just enjoying the freedom of the fact that we are not in diapers anymore and that we can go places and do things and that's really what it is. It's freedom for our kids, it's freedom for us, and it's self-esteem for them. They just, I don't know, there's something that happens when they get it and they walk a little different and they stand a little taller and they're just impressed with themselves, right? So I think that there is something that's automatically reinforcing about it, which is lovely, but you notice that he got a great deal of praise, and I'm sure that there was some kind of a toy situation or something that was extra reinforcing to him. But you notice they showed the little potty log there, and by the way, those kinds of things, those kinds of forms are all available in the skills program. If you're doing skills, I use skills at home. I mean, obviously we're way past toileting, but I use skills at home for other things. They have lots of forms and things like that so that you can track things of that nature as well as a bunch of other stuff. Really wonderful. But you saw that they were marking down and they went through it kind of quickly, but we've had people on before and you can search on YouTube or iTunes or Blip and put in toilet training to hear several different experts talk about this, setting a timer for a certain amount of time. And you do that not randomly, but you take some data on it beforehand to see how often is the child wetting the diaper so that you got a window of time. And if you see that, if you give the child a big drink, feed them something salty so that they're thirsty, they get a big drink, and you kind of just notice at what point does the diaper get filled, right? You're really keeping a close eye on things and checking the diaper, not necessarily bringing it to the child's attention at that stage, but just, checking, going, oh, okay, it takes some kids 15 minutes after they drink, others 20, others 45 minutes, right? Different times for different kids. But if it's taking the child 40 minutes, then you would set the timer at 30 minutes because you want to catch them before they've already had the accident. Are there going to be accidents? You betcha. And you saw Mom had the laundry and she's like, oh, this is today's laundry alone. Okay. But really important that when they have the accident that it's a non-event. That as much as possible, you've worked on adaptive skills beforehand so that if the child wets, that you encourage them to take off their own pants and underwear and pull their own pants and underwear back on, the fresh stuff, right? But we're not making them feel like a second-class citizen. We're not lecturing them. We're not nagging, my favorite thing to do. We're not saying to them, if you just had waited until, none of that. There are no words about it, no big discussion about it. We just change them. We don't make them sit forever in the wet things. We just change them. And we reset the clock. Give them more drinks and go for the next opportunity. But when they do go pee-pee in the potty, obviously you saw the big hoopla that is made, and that's exactly what we want to do. And this little boy was so pleased with himself that he is likely to want to do that again. Remember, principle number 1 of ABA, in order for any behavior to happen over and over and over again, it has to be reinforcing. So we never want to make the potty aversive. We want to make it the fun place in the house. We want to make going into the potty an exciting event, that there's fun and exciting things there. You saw Dad sitting on the edge of the tub there and the little boy sitting there and saying, help me, because they don't have the muscle control in the beginning. And he knows what he's supposed to do, but he's having trouble. He's like, Daddy, help me. And Dad says, I can't, but I'll sit here and I'll hold your hand. But this is big boy stuff. He's got to do it on his own. And when he does get it, oh, the sheer joy on his face, breathtaking. Now, does that mean there's never going to be any more accidents? No. They're going to keep doing the timer. And by the way, you see that they take him to the potty. At the 30-minute, the bell goes off. Some people are really into the bell, some people not as into the bell. I'm telling you right now that the bell is what made it possible for me. It wasn't as much for my child as it was for me, that I knew bell goes off, we go. And we continued that even out and about. I had a little digital timer and I would stick it in my pocket. We would leave the house, we would go to a play date or we would go to the store, the timer would go off and we would go to the bathroom for quite a while. Because I'm somebody who gets all caught up on what's happening and loses track of time, and 4 hours goes by and I go, what? 4 hours has gone by? And that didn't work for toilet training. Not in the beginning. My child totally has functional communication skills now, totally knows, his own body. As I mentioned, we were in the car and he's like, I need to go and I need to go right now. Yes, we will go. But in the beginning, when we weren't quite always there and he didn't have the whole understanding what the signs were, so there wasn't enough time, it was really important that I stay on a timer for moi. Now, other people don't want to do the timer. That's okay, but I needed it. So timer goes off, you go to the toilet, they sit there for a prescribed amount of time. It might be 5 minutes, it might be 8 minutes. You don't want to have them sit there so long that, some kids, their legs go to sleep if they sit there too long on the toilet. So you don't want to make it aversive, and that whatever's happening when they're on the toilet is fun, happy, right? That there's nothing, horrible about having to sit on the potty. But if they don't pee within a certain amount of time, there's no big hoopla, but it's like, okay, and the pants go up and we wash the hands, we do that whole ritual and we're out of the bathroom and we set the timer and different amounts for different kids, but for this child, 10 minutes. So we're out, we're playing, the timer goes off, 10 minutes, and what you find sometimes is that you'll come back into the bathroom and the child has already soiled their pants because they've now waited, 45 minutes, right? It happens. No big reaction, we reset everything to 30 minutes, the child helps to change themselves, we go back out 30 minutes and start again. No reaction to the mistakes, right? The misses. Big reaction when they do things right. And that's how you get it done. That's oversimplifying it, of course. If you want to know more about toilet training, we've done many hour-long interviews with people. We did one recently with Angela Persicki. We had Dr. Amy Kenzer on a couple of months ago. You can search those topics on our YouTube channel. You can search those topics on Blip. You can search them on iTunes. All right, we are going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to address your answers to the question of the day, which was, if you had $1 million to donate to an autism charity, who would you give it to and why? So now's a great time to be answering that on our Facebook channel. We'll be back after these messages.
My wife, Lori Frost, and I developed PECS over 25 years ago. The idea was to help very young children with autism and other disabilities be able to learn how to functionally communicate, that is, interact with other people. There had been a lot of work on picture-based systems then, but they all involved teaching children to point to pictures. And a lot of children with autism would interact with a picture, but continue to ignore the people around them. So the simple idea in the beginning was to motivate the child to want something, figure out what does he really like. It could be something to eat, something to play with, something to do. And then teach him, instead of grabbing for that thing, pick up that one picture in front of you, hand it to the nice person next to you, and they'll give you what you want. And that was the very beginning of PECS. Everyone has that fear about either interfering with speech or blocking the development of speech using picture systems, PECS, or even sign language. The reality is people have looked for that problem for over 40 years, and no one has found any evidence of it. So when I speak to parents, I don't even wait for them to tell me what they're afraid of. I tell them I know what you're afraid of. But many other people have had the same fear. So we've looked for this very, very carefully. And the problem, especially in autism, is not that the child can't speak, is that he doesn't communicate. He doesn't interact with other people to get things done. We're often like furniture. So if I'm holding candy, great, I can take the candy out of your hand. But if the candy is on top of the table and I can't reach it, I'm just going to keep trying to climb on the table. I'm not going to turn to mom and look at her and look at the candy and point, or I'm just going to deal with that candy in and of itself. So the whole point about PECS is, no, people are important. You have to interact with people. Gives them lots of chances to then be near us, listen to what we're saying, practice making sounds, putting sounds together. There are a lot of skills that are needed to get speech going. It's not just one day the kid's going to look and say, thanks, Mom, you've been great. You know, it comes in really slowly for typically developing children. We don't think of it that way because we don't notice how much teaching we're doing with typical children. It seems natural. But research shows that by the time a typical child's about 2 years old, they've practiced using their voice about 1 million to 1.5 million times. That's a lot of work. So with PECS, especially for the younger children, we need to get that interaction going. Of course, we're going to work on everything to get speech going. The reality is, though, some children never develop speech, and we don't know why. Anyone who guarantees that I'm going to make your non-speaking child talk in 6 months or a year, they're not being ethical because they cannot make that guarantee. We watched over 80 children in the Delaware public school system learning PECS when they were younger than 5 years old. And the vast majority of them acquired speech. And the ones who were acquiring speech eventually developed just as much speech as the kids who had some speech coming in. They had the same kind of outcomes. Same number of kids went on to regular school who had a little bit of speech coming in versus had none and started on PECS. So again, learning to use PECS never interfered with acquiring speech or making that tremendous academic gain that a lot of us would like to look.
And in the meantime, when you get the functional communication skills going, the payoff is that you get less challenging behavior and the ability to work on more things, right?
Yes, I mean, that's been like a freebie. Yeah. Obviously we need to sometimes do a functional assessment and figure out why is he doing that. But there's also studies showing that just teaching functional communication with PECS leads to improved performance. It's not magic, doesn't happen for everything.
It feels magic to parents.
Oh, it does. And it feels that way. Hey, it doesn't hurt as much either.
Right.
You know, we know everybody likes technology, and technology can be beneficial. So everybody wants an iPad. It's really cool. The risk, of course, is that some children with autism will learn how to play with an iPad and then be more isolated. So our concern is to make sure that any kind of app for an iPad uses the same principles that we've built into PECS. So the first app that we have for an iPad that's going to come out this summer is just designed to help with discrimination. It will not be a full communication system, but sometimes children have trouble with choosing an apple versus sock. And one of the critical issues for effective learning is feedback, getting quick feedback. The nice thing about an iPad is we've essentially programmed the device that as soon as the child touches the right picture, it lights up, it grows bigger, it says a word, so it gives them immediate feedback like, yeah, you've done something really good. Of course, we follow through with giving them the item, but the device is quicker than anybody can be. So then probably in the fall sometime we'll come up with an app that it's more comprehensive, but it's really designed for children who already have some sentence structure and beyond. That is, there's no research showing that using any of these devices leads to quicker initial acquisition of vocabulary, but it certainly helps with the expansion of vocabulary for some kids. Go to PECS.com. You can get to the U.S. company there. We have offices in 13 countries and around the world, so if people speak another language, they can just go find the language of their choice and probably get to a company that's speaking that language too.
And there we have Andy Bondi, one of the co-creators of the PECS system, and you have www.pecs.com if you want some more information. We're talking all this week about teaching functional communication skills, but right now we're talking about the question of the day. And our question today was, if you had $1 million to give to autism charities, who would you give it to and why? And I thought it was really interesting, some of the things that you guys wrote in. Somebody said, I would put it into schools for children with autism or pay for cameras in all of the classrooms so they'd have no excuses to use them. You know, this is a really big push right now, and I hadn't really thought about this before, but the idea of if there were cameras in the classroom that we could watch what's happening. And, you know, we have this with, there are services that can do this. You know, people do this with their dogs, that if they're away at work, they can hook up through the internet a way that there's a camera that is showing them. People have this with some preschools. There are some preschools who say, you know, you can have the preschool on a cam at work, you can have running in the background. And just the other day there was a commercial for something like this on television, so that you could hook up your home to be able to do this. And my son said, Mom, would you like to have this so that you could watch me in school all day? And I said, well, actually, yes, I would. I would love this. And excuse me, not because I think that anything inappropriate is happening at my son's school. In fact, quite the contrary, but there is something about being able to check in and see what's happening. And how wonderful would that be on a regular basis for all parents to be able to check in and see, oh, you know, they're painting rainbows today in kindergarten, or, oh, you know, they're learning this, and how much more effective could you potentially be as a parent, whether your child's on the spectrum or not, right? Let's just talk about it global, how great it would be for everybody. And we know that things don't only, you know, all the negative things don't only happen in the special day classroom, right? You know, I live in Los Angeles, and there were some events that made world headline news in the last year of things that went on in classrooms that people were shocked and stunned and appalled, let's say that. Certainly I was shocked and stunned and appalled. I used to teach, and I said, you know, on a very basic level, I just can't even believe some of the things that went on in the classroom, and I'm appalled. But on another level, I said, my goodness, you know, I mean, was nobody teaching? When you're teaching, you're busy. So I don't know. But this whole idea of classrooms having cameras that are hooked up so that people could be watching, it's not that expensive, quite honestly. And what a great way to showcase teachers who are doing a great job. And what a great way to discourage people who aren't going to do a great job from ever coming into the classroom. Thank you. Don't even bother. Just stay home. Do something else if you're that kind of a person. I just think it's money well spent. I think there are safety issues. So I'm with you. Let's get classrooms wired. I mentioned before the other day that in my son's school, both the principal and the vice principal tour every single classroom on campus at least once a day. I have been there and seen them do walkthroughs multiple times, that they just walk in completely unannounced, hang out for a couple of seconds, watch what's happening, see that there's learning happening, and then they're out the door into the next classroom. They absolutely know what's going on, and they do it at different times, so it's never expected, but because everybody is used to it, there's no big reaction to it. Somebody comes in the door and they go out the door, and the kids don't look, the teacher doesn't look, they just keep on doing what they're doing. I just think it's lovely. But cameras, even better. And for parents to be able to pay a small fee to log on from work to see what, oh my goodness, you could raise the money for the cameras with that alone. It's a great idea. So thanks for writing that in. Okay, another person who says only 1 million. I know. It's like that old Dorothy Parker story, the short story about the girl who on her lunch break walks by. She plays this game in her head, and I don't remember what the dollar amount she starts with, but she says, if I had this much money, what would I spend it on? And one day, it's how she gets through her lunch break. One day on her lunch break, she walks by, and I don't know whether it's Tiffany window, it's been a long time since I read it, she sees this string of pearls, and she asks how much it is, and it's like 5 times whatever her big dollar amount is that she likes to dream about, and so she walks out and changes her dollar amount to substantially more. From then on. Yeah, only $1 million, I know, but $1 million can do a lot. So they wrote in only $1 million, that is tough. I like the answer above about putting classrooms in the cameras in the classroom. But being realistic and knowing that $1 million won't go as far as I would like it, I would have to say I would be somewhat selfish. That's okay. I would disperse it amongst the organizations here in the Phoenix area to hire more therapists and train them properly. I would try and make sure that the kids who can't afford the awesome treatment my son has been getting from his therapist got the treatment that they needed. Oh, am I feeling you there? Because, I talk about it all the time that we were so desperate. We started ABA therapy, and then, and at that point, all I would think about at night was, what are we going to do? What is going to become of us? How are we ever going to be able to help our child? Are we going to be able to do this? And then when ABA started, of course, there was a certain amount of, how are we going to survive this financially, getting through the long haul of this? But there was also that thought always in my head of, how can it be that there are kids in this world who don't get the same thing that my son is getting? When I see how awesome it is for him, how can I sleep knowing that there are kids who aren't getting this? So I'm with you there. I think, we have to get this playing field leveled so that all kids get access. We're working on it, and it's getting better every year, and with insurance reform this year, absolutely amazing what is going to be possible if enough people get the right information, which, I'm real committed to screaming as loud as I can, as much as I can, to make sure that people get the information. But I agree with you. We've got to make this possible for all of our kids. Another person who says, I would give it to as many autistic research places as I can to find a cure for people who are autistic. Of course, cure is a very emotional word in our world. Not everybody agrees that there is even the potential for a cure, or that there's a need for a cure, that there are some benefits that people feel like they enjoy as a result of having this diagnosis. And I'm not talking about getting a special pass or something like that, but just that, it's a different way of thinking. And I just want to be 100% and abundantly clear that my position on that is that there are certain aspects of this that are empowering, right? That my son has abilities that that I don't know if he would have had he not been on the autism spectrum. But as a parent, I want him to overcome all of the disabling aspects of the disorder. That's what I like to focus my energy on. I don't know about the word cure, but I don't want him to be held back in any way by this disorder. And that's sort of where my head is constantly at. So, in any case, we're going to take a short break and we're going to come back, but don't forget that at the top of the hour, we are going to be joined by Rupert Isaacson from Horseboy, and we are going to be joined by Rocky, who is going to be telling us about the surfing end of this surf and turf camp that happened recently and what an incredible experience it was for the children who were involved. So stick with us. I'm here today with Sarah Cho, who is the managing supervisor of CARD Fresno. And she's a wonderful resource, and today we're going to be talking with her about using assisted technology.
If you are a parent of a child who is primarily nonvocal and maybe has been using a type of iconic communication system, and you are recognizing that your child has really just outgrown it. You know, it is something, they need something faster, they need something better. There's so much more that we can do in the world of augmentative devices. I am a huge fan of using augmentative device programs on cell phones and also on iPads. As you and I were chatting, we had just downloaded a really simple tap to talk program. So for this one, all a child would need to be able to do is just tap on what they wanted.
I want a drink.
And then that immediately pulls up a screen where there's water, juice, milk, soda, and smoothie. So maybe the child just wanted a drink of their water.
Water, please.
And it's that simple. And there's not a lot to manipulate. The child does not have to have really advanced motor skills at all.
We're seeing more and more organizations advocating getting an iPad because of all those features. But it's not just for kids who are non-vocal.
We have a lot of kids, you know, who have significant impairment in their sensory regulation. They really are seeking visual input, auditory input, tactile input. And if they're learning to appropriately play with a cell phone or with an iPad or with a computer, it provides those levels of appropriate sensory stimulation. So you're getting appropriate sensory, hopefully leading to a decrease in some of those repetitive behaviors, and you're teaching age-appropriate play skills. You know, they have free apps even if you're working on verb use, and the child can actually scroll through the different pictures and practice talking and narrating what they see in the pictures. There's just a lot of wonderful things that you can get from devices nowadays. You know, whether we're looking at language, social, play.
For my son, it's quite the social thing. When he sees somebody else who has one, he gravitates to them and they start playing together. It really starts the conversation with the other child.
What games do you have? What apps do you have? Can I play that one? Can I see it?
And a lot of the apps are super inexpensive or free.
Or free.
Which is, you can't be free. Free is good.
You know, so I mean, you might have that initial investment in actually purchasing an appropriate device, but then a lot of the software or things that you need, you know, are free or relatively inexpensive. There are also some really nice applications that might be a little bit more expensive, maybe like $20 or $30, where you can essentially download the entire, for example, PEC's icon library for just that little initial, you know, investment.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. It's that time of day when we talk about success at school and setting our kids up for being able to go to school and excel. You know, we're always trying to set our kids up for success, no matter what we're doing. If we're teaching to them, we're going to talk about a DTT tip in just a little while. But we don't have to make it hard. So much of the time when we're teaching something, we have an expectation, right? And we know where we want to get to, and we're surprised when we're not just there, right? Isn't that part of the strife that happens? And especially with our kids on the autism spectrum, that's an unrealistic expectation. To think we're just going to get there and it's not going to take any time or effort. We have to be able to teach the skill. And what's the most effective way to teach the skill? Give them the right answer. Right? If you're trying to teach somebody, what is the capital of New York, they're not going to be able to pull it out of their head if they don't already know it. So when we teach the capital of New York and we say to the child, okay, what's the capital of New York? And they say, I don't know, or they get the blank look and we say, it's Albany. Okay, and then we say to them again, what's the capital of New York? It's Albany. Great. And we keep, giving them opportunities, and then we'll space out, the amount of time, we've told them what it is 5 times, and we'll space out the time a little bit and come back to them in 20 minutes and say, hey, what's the capital of New York? And they may not remember it again, and we tell them it's Albany, right? Because at some point, if we ask it enough over enough period of time, they're going to get it, and we're going to reinforce them every time they get it. Remember our thing earlier today about we're going to reinforce approximations. So if I say to the child, what's the capital of New York? And they look at me and I go, it's Albany. And they go, oh, and I say Albany, and they say Albany, and I go, good job, that's great. And then I say, what's the capital of New York? It's Albany. Oh, okay, say it. Albany. Great. Oh, that's wonderful. And then what's the capital of New York? It's Albany. The first time that the child says it alone without us prompting and having to tell them the answer, we're going to make a big, huge deal about it, right? And then we're going to wait a little while, ask them if they can remember it without us telling. Big, huge reinforcement for that, right? So that's what we do. That's how we teach. We want to give the right answer. So my tip for teaching and getting your child set up for success for school, we've talked about a lot of different things over the last few months about getting them on a schedule that kind of mimics what's going to happen when they transition, and work on some of the things that they're going to be working on that are going to get introduced so that you're prepping the way, right? But we also need to prime the pump for homework. That pretty much any school that you go to at this point, your child should be coming home with homework. If your child's going to a special day class and they say, we're not sending home homework, I would express concern about that and say there has to be something appropriate that we should be working on at home. I think you'll find that they'll pony up and give you some stuff. If they don't, go to someplace and get a curriculum guide you can buy things that are worksheets for the appropriate grade. They sell them in the, warehouse stores that you can go in their book section, and they have the whole worksheets for kindergartners. They have worksheets for first grade and up, right? And if your child is not where they're supposed to be, you need to get them caught up, then go to the grade level where they're currently testing at. So if your child's in 3rd grade but functioning in a kindergarten, then get the kindergarten one, or get the 1st grade one to start introducing some new topics, depending on how comfortable you feel introducing new things. But in any case, it's really, I think, an unrealistic expectation to expect that, for instance, in kindergarten, what they'll do, a lot of places, depends on the teacher, they'll give you a packet of stuff and say, work at it at whatever pace is appropriate for your child, right? Which I thought was lovely when we were in kindergarten. And because my child was having therapy every afternoon after he would come home from kindergarten, the homework was kind of hard to get to. We would come right home from kindergarten and he would go into a session with a therapist. So what ended up happening was we had about an hour on Fridays after school. I think it was because school got out early on Fridays that year. We had an hour after school where he didn't have a therapist, and the therapist would then come an hour later. So that became the time that we would attempt to do the entire packet of homework for the entire week. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know why somebody didn't hit me in the head with a brick and say, you know what, here's what's wrong with that. You're setting yourself up for failure, that the child's going to have a hard time doing it, and you're missing out on the benefits of doing a little bit every day so that it's not overwhelming, and because you're going to go to 1st grade next year and they're going to send home homework that has to be done that night and come home for the next day. Didn't quite end up being that way for our first grade, but it was stuff that needed to happen on a regular basis. But you know, sometimes you don't think it through. We got through it. But it meant that by the time we got to second grade, we had some issues. And somebody said to me then, you know, it's really best if you work this out so that there is a set time of day and that we do homework. And what a great thing if I had realized this beforehand and started with him when he was 3 and say, okay, it's time for homework. And that every day it's a big excitement. And when he was 3, pull out the most reinforcing arts and crafts project that there was to him, or the most reinforcing computer program, or whatever it was for the individual child, and call it homework time and set a little timer and say, we're going to do a half an hour of homework. Today is the day that we do homework, and we're going to do a science experiment. And you know, even if it's, you can go online and find all these really cool science experiments. I don't know if you've ever seen the one, and make sure, you know, because if your child has a milk allergy, you're going to want to be cautious about this one. But you can take a disposable metal pie pan and you pour the milk into the metal pie pan and you put a little bit of dish soap in the middle of it, and then you squirt food coloring and it swirls and makes all these shapes, and then you put another dot of soap and it does all this. It's a half an hour's worth of fun, right? Those kinds of things you can start with a child early and say, it's homework time, right? And then gradually, in the middle of all of it, as you start to work to pencil and paper stuff, you know, you can say, okay, so we did the milk experiment, and have the piece of paper, and you draw the letters for M-I-L-K for milk, make it related to it in some way, and every time they draw the M-I-L-K, that you put more soap in, right? So that you're making it reinforcing for the child to be doing the exercise. They don't even notice that they're working, right? But you've built in this time at the same time every day. It's homework time. Well, you know, it'd be great if you could start at 3, but a lot of us missed that boat. Missed it. Whoo, where'd the boat go, right? Why didn't I see the boat go? It was a motorboat. It went flying by. It's the wonderful thing about teaching, and I know from being a teacher that, it's, you know, the teacher's creed is that every week when it's Monday, it's a new opportunity to start something new. If something that you've been doing isn't working, you can always shift gears. So if your child is 12 and you've never had this, you can do it now. Is it going to be harder? Yeah, because they're used to, they know what homework is. 3-year-old doesn't know, but a 12-year-old does. But you can build it in such a way that you can say, you know what, every day at 3 o'clock, starting today, we have a new rule that we're going to do homework for, and set it for an appropriate time, have the timer. And one of the things that we eventually did, because we were having such difficulty with homework at a certain point, and our case supervisor said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to say that he has to get his homework done in an appropriate amount of time. I think we decided it was 40 minutes. And we set the timer for 40 minutes, and we said, so this, and we would show him, this is how much homework you have to get done in 40 minutes. If you get it done really well, neatly, and the answers are correct, and mom or dad has checked them, in less time, then you get bonus time to do the, you know, and we would have activities that he could choose from, stuff that he really wanted to do. And it became, and we had a visual chart for it so that, you know, if he did the homework in 15 minutes, and usually my child would pick video games, right? So if he did the homework within 15 minutes, then that gave him another 20 minutes of playing the video games. But if it took him 30 minutes to do the homework, then he would only get 10 minutes of playing the video game. So what we, but it had to be done properly, it had to be done neatly, and what we were setting him up for was some fluency training that he was motivated to get it done and to get it done quickly. Because before that, we would have a 10-minute before we would sit down to do homework. And, you know, and I would sit there and say to him, you know, you're just eating your time, you're just eating your time. It did nothing, because the visual schedule, he was there doing the homework. And I didn't have to ask him twice, set the timer, and he sat down and got down to business. But don't expect it to just magically come on the first day of school. I think you need to ramp up to it. You know, we have been having my son do a little bit of work every day, and we've kind of changed it recently so that we We're getting him ready for school. And a lot of schools are going to send homework home on the first day. Some of them aren't. But even at whatever level your child is at, make them give you some homework. If they're at a place where they're saying, oh, we're just not, don't let them give up on your child. You're in the business of creating progress, and progress happens with opportunity. Make sure your child has opportunities to be able to access the curriculum, to get caught up. So fight for the homework, set the regimen, make it reinforcing. Offer them the sun, the moon, and the stars for doing the homework well, because it adds up. Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to be talking about our funding tip for the week. And then at 11 o'clock, we are going to be joined by some guests who are going to be talking to us about a recent surf and turf camp. So stick with us.
Well, we have developed a protocol for assessing behaviors in children with autism. And basically, the kids come out into two broad areas, and sometimes it's a mixture of the two. Some of the children we see, we would call wandering. They haven't learned the skills of knowing that you're supposed to stay close to mom or dad, walk next to them, not walk off on your own and just wander off, or stop and look at things and not notice that mom or dad has kept going and turned around the corner and are now out of sight. Typically, developing children have what we call stranger anxiety, and it seems to be have a biological basis, and they learn to stick very close to mom and dad, especially at a very young age. Kids with autism are much less likely to show that sort of thing, and so we see this wandering behavior more often in young children with autism than in typically developing kids. So that's one group, is what we call the wanderers. And then there's another group of kids that kind of bolt or elope, and these are children who typically do it for a reason. There's a goal. Sometimes that is when we try to get them to do tasks that they don't like doing, they run away from us. Other kids, when we're not providing attention, they run away to see if we will react to their running. And other kids will run to gain access to what we call tangible items. And sometimes that is just running to get to the playground, like typically kids would do, but doing it more intently, oftentimes not watching, not when they cross the street, could run in front of a car. And then also we sometimes see kids bolting for tangible items that are kind of unusual. That the children with autism often have unusual interests. And so we may have a child with autism who is bolting to pick up an unusual looking rock, or to go to the elevator and press and stim on the buttons. We had one little guy that would go to the soda machine, and big, fancy colored lights behind it, and he'd go and tap on it and look at it and listen to it and engage in self-stimulatory behavior on that particular object. But that was where, when he ran away to that. And so we've developed a set of procedures for looking at the kids, starting with a descriptive assessment, where we have them walk along a prescribed route, and sometimes we bait the prescribed route with things that might tempt a child to run away to get to. Sometimes we give them demands to see if, while we're walking with them, if we're telling them to do things, tuck in your shirt, comb your hair, are they more likely to bolt to get away from those tasks we're asking them to do? And so we've developed this set of walks that help us to determine, are these children just wandering and don't know when they should stop with us or walk with us? And then we have a set of treatments that are matched to the function or the purpose of the child's elopement or wandering or bolting. The treatment that we prescribe then is a very skill acquisition based treatment to teach the child that they need to stay within arm's length of the adult they're walking with, and we have specific procedures for doing that training. If the child tends to be a bolter, then we do a functional analysis to understand why they're bolting, what they're bolting to get, what is the goal or outcome that is reinforcing the behavior, and then we develop a specific intervention to address that function or that purpose.
I would imagine, though, that the assessment that you do, those directed walks, are things that are a controlled environment and really need to be done by professionals. Is that true?
Yes, and that's where we're at right now, and we start with that. We develop the treatment. We teach the child when it's safe to go and do things, when it's safe to move away from the adult, and then we train the parents to implement the procedures. And over time, we want to get so the child's elopement is under appropriate, what we would call stimulus control. They're doing it at the right time when they have signals to tell them it's safe to move away from mom or dad, but when it's not, that they need to stay close by. For example, one of the first children that we worked with bolted whenever she saw a dog. She just loved dogs, and her training went so that gradually we would expose her to different things that she would run away for, and the dog was the kind of final test case where she would have to walk about a quarter of a mile, walk right by a dog, go back to her starting point, and then we would say to the signal, now it's safe to go and see the dog. And we arranged so that that would occur in a safe location, inside a fence, and make sure it's a safe dog to be around. But to teach them that, yes, sometimes it's okay to run and go see a dog, and sometimes it's not, and here's when it is appropriate, and here's when it's not appropriate, and teach those skills, and then teach the parents to be able to implement that protocol.
We hear a lot from parents who give up. They feel like they're never going to be able to stop a child from eloping, and we always like to give them with hope. What kind of success do you have?
Sure. We recently pulled together the data from about a dozen cases, and the average reduction in elopement was about 95%. In all cases, we were able to reduce elopement by at least 85%. So in the vast majority of cases, we can greatly reduce this. In some cases, reduce it to zero, but in most cases, reduce it to a great deal and make it much more manageable for parents.
You were just watching Dr. Wayne Fisher. We had an opportunity to speak with him at ABAI International, ABA International, where we went in Seattle, and we spoke with him about wandering. He is a brilliant man with a great deal of information about a lot of different things, but that was just one of the things that we chose to speak with him about. So I hope that you find that informative. We've got many more of those ABAI interviews coming up to show you in the coming days and weeks. I want to remind you that at 11 o'clock today, we are going to be joined by Rupert Isaacson, who is going to be Skyping in with us live from Great Britain. He is from the Horse Boy Foundation, and we're also going to be joined by Rocky Rayner from Half Moon Bay Surfing Club. So they're both going to be with us in some way, shape, or form. I think Rocky's going to be on the phone with us, and that Rupert is going to be via Skype, and we'll talk with them about a camp that they just did called the Surf and Turf Camp, where a group of kids on the autism spectrum had the opportunity, and by the way, they were able to do these things for free. So I can't wait to talk to them about what happened at this camp, what it was like. I know very little bit about it, except that they had a wonderful time, and I've seen some amazing pictures, and they've got some video for us to look at. But the kids got to ride horses and go surfing, and amazing. My child has had the opportunity to go surfing with an organization that does that for autism, and it's an amazing thing. Absolutely an amazing thing. When you give a child an opportunity to do something that's really outside the scope of their everyday world. And my son has also had the opportunity to go horseback riding too. Really life-changing stuff. So we'll look forward to talking to them. I just think the two paired together, wow, powerhouse. But I wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk with you about funding autism, right? Because I know you probably heard about this camp and went, oh yeah, how much did that cost, right? And the reality is that the almighty money is a part of this journey. This is more expensive than any of us can afford. I'm talking about autism here because the camp was paid for. That was free. So we can all afford that, right? But autism is more expensive than any of us can afford. So how do we do this? And I don't know about you, but I used to just sit and think and go, I have no idea. How do people do this? I'll be honest with you that it was mystifying to me. I mean, how do people even have a kid? How do you pay for it with a kid who's developing? Typically, it just seems like it's not an equation that adds up, and you just kind of go for it, right? I have friends who said, well, we're waiting to have a child until we can afford it. And my mother had told me, don't wait for that. You'll never be able to afford it. And I was 40 when we had my son, so heaven help me if we had waited till we could have afforded him. He's worth so much more than I, you know what I'm saying? In any case, but you find yourself on this journey, not by your own choosing, and suddenly there are bills that cascade in, and much like the economy has been in the last couple of years, it's like one thing tanks and then a whole bunch of other things slide into the ocean, and you go, okay, now what? So we do take a little bit of time on a weekly basis to acknowledge that that is a part of this journey, that the funding is, and it's a big part of it, it's a big part of the stress. It's no coincidence that on Mondays we talk about reducing stress, and then later on we talk about funding, because it kind of goes hand in hand, right? If we just included the IEP tip on this day, then we really would have all the stress, right? But we're not doing that. In any case, we talk about different things and places that you can apply for grants and so on and so forth. But what I want to talk about today that seems to be very pressing to me is that a lot of you that are watching right now who think that you are not a part of this conversation because you think you can't afford ABA, and that you don't have any funding. The truth is that a lot of you who are sitting there thinking that actually have funding available for ABA today that you don't know about. And I know this because I talk to people on a regular basis, and even recently was talking to somebody who is super duper informed, super duper intelligent, and they were saying, I just wish that we could do some more ABA. We did some ABA, but there's just a couple of things, and I said, well, why aren't you? Well, we're not funded anymore, and I totally understand. Because if this had been 3 months ago, this person that was talking to me, that was absolutely correct. There was no funding. But that is not the case today. So we're all on this, we're trying to level the playing field, but guess what? The playing field is going like this. And it's really hard to keep up. I mean, you've got your lives to lead, you've got things going on, your kids are going here, going there, you got concerns about different stuff. So it's really hard to stay abreast of things. But I need for all of you to know that things have changed, and you can't just assume I'm still left out of this, because here are some of the things that have changed. It may be that your state just enacted insurance reform and you just became available. It may be that because you had a policy before, but that some of the laws have changed, and there's the Mental Health Parity Act, and maybe your insurance a year ago, or I guess it would have been 2 years ago now, because it was about a year and a half ago that the Mental Health Parity Act took effect. But your insurance at one time, you called, you went through all of the rigmarole, and they said, nope, we don't fund ABA. But because of the Mental Health Parity Act, if you were to go back and look and see that in your policy, and it doesn't matter what state you're in, but if your policy covers ABA, or excuse me, if your policy covers something like ABA in cases where there is a car accident and there is brain damage or of that kind, and they're going to cover ABA, then they have to cover it for the same amount for ABA. They can't discriminate between the two. Check, I don't know all the ins and the outs on the Mental Health Parity Act, but it's worth it to check. I am not an insurance expert. Just want to make sure that I say that to you. But there are more things that are changing. Even though you may not have in your state insurance reform, There have been, I think, 5 companies to date that have done settlements outside because they knew that they were going to get sued. They've done settlements where they are now going to provide ABA as a service, even though they don't have to in some states. So it is worthwhile to check again. Now, how do you do that? How do you check to see? Because it's difficult, right? We talked about this the other day. Don't take a no from somebody who isn't authorized to give you a yes. And what we're hearing is that a lot of people are calling their insurance companies, getting them on the horn and saying, so do I have it, do I not? And the person on the phone goes, no, you don't. And unfortunately, you can't trust that person because things are so new in some cases that they don't even know. So how are you going to combat that, right? Well, I do think that there's 2 different places that you can go before you start to dive in and spend all the time and stress on the phone system with the insurance company, which is, right up there with, I don't know. Like I'm thinking of horrible things, right? horrible things. That's right up there with a colonoscopy. Just not, nobody wants to sign up for it, right? So there are 2 things that you can do. If you have an AB provider that you've been using or that you would like to use, call them and say, I'd really like to be using you, or I'd like to come back. Can somebody call my insurance company and see what my benefits are? And by the way, I would say it that way. I would assume, those positive assumptive questions we've been talking about all day, I would assume that you're covered until you're told otherwise, right? Because if somebody calls up and says, hey, I'm calling to see how much they're funded for how many hours, you're more likely to get to the meat of what it is than if you call up and say, I'm calling to see if they are covered. Just saying. All right. Now, so you can go through your provider and say, can you chase this down for me and see what my benefits are? They should be interested in doing that for you. Should be. I can't say that they necessarily will be. But if that's not an option for you, the other option is to go to your HR director and say to your HR director, you know what, I'm thinking that we're covered and things just changed, and I know it's not the same as it was even 3 weeks ago or 3 months ago or 3 years ago, but could you do some research for me on this? I want to know if ABA for autism is covered and what the dollar amount is, or you can go in and be positively assumptive with them. I'm fairly sure that we're covered, but it's so new that the documents aren't up online and I get caught in the phone tree. Can you find out for me what we're covered for? And have the HR director, they're probably going to come back to you and say, I'm getting all these, but keep the pressure on and say to them, it makes a world of difference to my child. It makes a world of difference to my family. And I so appreciate you doing this, and lay it on thick, right? Lay it on thick. There's no reason not to. So definitely check it out. Don't assume. I can't even tell you how distressing that is to me that we could fight and work and work and work and everybody has these benefits now and people don't know they have the benefit. This is just unacceptable to me. So, and a part of the problem is that we can't just say carte blanche. Yes, I'm talking to you, and you have it, and here is the way. It's different in different states with different policies, with different companies. Start dates are different. It's complicated. It's worth it to figure out. It's 100% worth it to figure it out. Keep asking until you get the no. I know that some of you are still going to get the no, but things are constantly changing, and that doesn't mean, you asking and getting the no now is going to help you for when it is a yes for you, and I'm convinced that it's going to be a yes for you sometime soon in the future, whether it's that we get the federal mandate that goes through or the states all go through or all the insurance companies settle down. We're too far at this point at 31 states for everybody to not get it. So keep the pressure on. Okay, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Rupert Isaacson from Horseboy and Rocky Rayner from Half Moon Bay Surfing Club. So stick with us.
Welcome. I'm here today with Cecilia Knight, who is the Director of Training for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and today we're talking about how to keep kids healthy.
I think it's really important for, of course, every child to have a pediatrician that the parent is comfortable with and that the parent is seeing regularly. Someone who's an expert on autism, who understands the issues related to autism.
A lot of kids who are on the spectrum are a little bit obsessed with one area of food. Any suggestions?
I think it's really difficult for parents because many of their children either self-limit or they don't like certain textures. Their pediatricians, after testing them, see that they are deficient in iron and other nutrients that are so important. And so it does reach the levels where many parents need to seek help. Maybe from something like SOS, Specialized Outpatient Services, or another feeding clinic in their area. Someone who can address specifically, how do I get my child to eat this texture? How do I get my child to eat something other than French fries?
So what advice do you have for parents in terms of realizing what's the autism and what's something else that has to be addressed?
As we all know, every child is different. And from one child to the next on the spectrum, their symptoms are different and what they struggle with medically is different. You do run into a problem with many physicians saying, well, that's just symptomatic of autism, and so we're not going to treat it. And I think it's really important to be sure that if they need to see a neurologist to address seizures, that they're getting that done. If they need to see a nutritionist because of the food issues, that they're getting that done, all while being treated by a pediatrician who maybe can help oversee that. But I think it's not a great idea to dismiss everything as that's just autism.
I always try to imagine a child trying to do therapy while they've got all these biological things going on, and how could they possibly concentrate?
Right. Well, our clients are just like you and I. It's very difficult to concentrate if I have a headache or if I have an upset stomach. And so I think it's really important to first give the child the opportunity to feel better, whatever that means for that child, because again, each child is very different. But I have had children that once you address a specific food allergy, then the symptoms of stomach pain or, a sty in their eye that wouldn't go away or constant diarrhea, until we addressed that medical issue, it's very difficult to concentrate on treatment.
Sure.
And then once they could address those issues, then treatment, went more the way we were hoping it would go.
Absolutely. And there's all kinds of things that would come under that heading, right? If they had sleep disorders, if we already said food allergies, but what about vision problems?
Absolutely. The hard thing is, depending on the child's ability to communicate, sometimes it's difficult to have vision tested or to have hearing tested. So working in combination with someone who could help expose the child to the contingencies that would be in place, for example, for a vision test, and practicing or being prepared may help in those situations, but it's definitely a real issue.
Wow. So maybe even using your ABA program to practice for the vision test.
Right. It's very difficult for parents to find a pediatrician often that they connect with, but I encourage them to keep looking for a pediatrician who has specific experience and has other clients maybe with autism, and they have a good rapport with other parents. Someone who can listen to their concerns about sleep or about seizures or about eating and not dismiss them. Because, sometimes we uncover things that are surprising or that were unexpected, just like with the rest of us. So it's important to keep looking for answers, I think, to all of those issues.
And the healthier they are, the happier they're going to be, and the quicker they're going to learn.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm so thrilled today that we're going to have an opportunity to talk to some gentlemen about a camp that recently occurred. It was called a surf and turf camp. And right now we are joined via Skype from Great Britain. We have Rupert Isaacson from Horseboy with us. Rupert, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on.
And I have to ask you first, before we do anything, for your permission for us to be broadcasting your image live and also recording it and to be talking to you. Do we have your permission?
You have my permission.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us. You've just gotten off a plane. How long were you on the plane?
It was Texas to London, so it's a 10-hour flight. But
Wow.
you know.
So you've got to be worn out at this point, but I thank you for taking the time to join us today. Tell us a little bit, give us a little bit of background on what Horseboy is and where you're mostly located.
Okay. Well, Horseboy is a non-profit and a for-profit. It's got two wings. But basically what we do is we provide services to autism families. I'm an autism dad myself, where we work with horses and nature in general and animals in day-long sessions, camps and so forth to help get direct communication from the kids.
Wonderful.
That can be verbal or non-verbal, but it's about direct communication. The reason this evolved was that my son, I've always been a horse guy, always trained horses, and my son learned to speak, got his first expressive language on the back of a horse. And specifically not doing regular therapeutic riding in the saddle with me, sitting in front of me. And I realized after some years of doing this, and then doing it with other kids as well, that there was some science behind what was going on, that this rocking motion of the hips causes the body to be flooded with a feel-good hormone, that's oxytocin. And the constant finding and refinding of balance opens up the learning receptors of the brain. Normally that's a stress situation. You take out the stress, you replace it with bliss, and boom, you've got a kid who's in this optimal position to receive and retain information. So our foundation provides these services to families free of charge, and our for-profit trains people how to do it. We've been running camps, 3-day Horseboy camps, for quite a while now in North America and Europe. But I had been reading a lot about the cognitive leaps that kids were making with surfing. And I was sort of looking for the right partnership. I thought, well, gosh, if I know what we can do with horses. What if we did a camp that was combining this with surfing? Might we really get this kind of amazing double whammy effect of completely blissed out kids with their learning receptors wide open and all their sensory stuff being calmed either by the rocking motion of the horse and the natural environments or by the ocean. So I finally managed to make contact with a really great pair of gentlemen, Rocky in Half Moon Bay in California, who runs the Half Moon Bay Surf Club there, and a guy called Captain Jack, or Surfer Jack from Indo-Jacks in North Carolina, who's an old Half Moon Bay surfing guy who now runs his own surfing non-profit out in North Carolina. We put our heads together and we came up with a prototype camp where we camped in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and then we spent part of the day riding, part of the day in the ocean. We saw cognitive leaps that were frankly jaw-dropping, including in my own son too, and he's doing pretty well. I'm used to him doing well. He took an enormous leap forward, but there were some really quite severe kids who were just not the same child within 24 hours, and so I think we have to keep doing this.
I think it's a wonderful idea. I think it's just great. Tell us a little bit about the nuts and the bolts. When did it happen? How did you find the people who participated? How did they find you?
Okay. Well, like all these things, it happened organically through one connection to another. I spend a lot of time going around the country training people who run therapeutic riding barns how to work specifically with autism and how to train their horses to really optimize the work with autism. There's a woman in Half Moon Bay called Joelle Dunlap, and she runs an organization called Square Peg, the idea being that everybody fits. I've trained her. She's one of the places that Horseboy has put the most training into in North America. It's right there in Half Moon Bay. So that's big surfing country. So naturally, I said to her, look, I've got this idea. Do you know anyone? She goes, well, of course I know people here. It's Half Moon Bay. So she brokered a meeting in the local Pete's Coffee with Rocky, who runs the Half Moon Bay Surf Club, and he said, yeah, I don't see why we shouldn't do this. I've got a great team of teen volunteers, but I also suggest you talk to Indo-Jacks over in North Carolina, because they have been working with autism and surfing. Maybe we could get him to come back out here, and the three of us together could put this on. So we did it, 2 weeks ago now, and everything was put together organically. We liked, with all horseboy camps, we keep the numbers small, no more than 4 families. If you do it bigger than that, the effect can sometimes get a bit diluted. And I'd rather see lots and lots of little camps happen than camps with hundreds of kids. And because then sometimes inevitably people are going to fall through the cracks.
Right.
But the main thing for us is it's not just about the autistic child. I mean, I can go at length into what some of the cognitive leaps forward and direct communication and language and verbal skills and so on were that we saw. But before we get too down that road, I think that anyone who's an autism parent like me knows that it's not just about the kid on the spectrum, it's about the whole
it is the whole
family. In the horseboy method, the first person we start working on is usually not the kid. It's usually mum, because the kid arrives at our ranch, or a ranch that we've trained, after 45 minutes to an hour on the car, and all they want to do is run around, get on the trampoline, play with the baby goats, chuck a ball for the dog, get on the swing, and unless they're telling us, I want to get up on that horse right now, we're not even going to suggest that to them until they've been at our place for an hour or two. And they've assimilated. So what we'll usually do is we'll address mum first, because mum, let's talk about autism marriages. Her marriage is probably on the rocks. 80% of autism marriages break up. She's not sleeping. She's up to her elbows in poo. She's told what a terrible mother she is every time she goes to the supermarket, probably by total strangers. Probably her own mother, says to her, oh, if you were just stricter with him, he wouldn't do this. So she's completely isolated. And she's not, she's not sleeping, and she's feeling guilty about her other kids, that she's not giving them, the attention. And usually what we do is we start with her. And while her kid is going boing, 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 boing there on the trampoline, really happy, and her other kids are all over the climbing frame and maybe with one of our volunteers with a horse, I will put mum up on a horse, static, and let her just lie body to body so that she can feel the sensory benefits that her child is going to get. And it also communicates to the kid that it's safe to get up there on that horse. Mum's up there. And once we've calmed her down that way, she gets her internal stims, if you like, start to calm down. We'll actually transfer her into, if she feels comfortable enough, into a room and lay her down on a daybed and say, you take a nap, girl. You take a nap. We're good, and you can hear your kid is happy, and if he needs you, he's going to come running in here. You take, it's that kind of family care that we're also all about. And then if the sister comes out, and it's a girl 8 to 13 years old, well, guess what her dream is? They're usually pony mad, but there's no money, and maybe they don't live somewhere with horses. Well, guess what? We can teach that girl to ride for free, by the way.
Yeah.
And because we don't charge for our day-to-day services.
Which is amazing, I have to say. That's absolutely amazing.
Then let's say there's a brother who doesn't care from horses, but he's really into soccer, or he's really into martial arts. We will have a guy there, a really good soccer player, ready to play with him. I will bring in a martial arts black belt guy to do martial arts with him. You've got to address everybody's dream, you know what I mean? And suddenly the family dynamic around the autism starts to change. You instead of the kids feeling, oh, the doors to my dreams are being shut by my brother or my sister's autism, suddenly they're flying open because of the autism. Changes everything. And then we start the nuts and bolts of the actual horseboy method and the actual horseboy work with the spectrum kid that's come to us. But the camps, even more than the day-long sessions, allow us to really give an environment to a family where they can find this real sense of tribe and connect with other families, because autism parents always get their best information from other parents and seldom from professionals. We know this. They're not going to be judged if their kid takes a poop under the tree. It's fine. The kid wants to take off all their clothes. It's fine. No, everybody knows the score. Everyone's watching out for the kid because everybody knows how to shadow. So they can actually start to relax a little bit. And then they can see that their other kids are happy. Who doesn't want to surf? Who doesn't want to get up on a horse? Who doesn't want to sword fight and play soccer? Come on, and go looking for mountain lion poo on the trails, And so that's very much as what it's about. And the same with the surfing component. It's not just about getting in the water. It's also about spending a day at the beach.
Absolutely.
As a family. with support.
Well, it sounds like an amazing, power-packed vacation that has huge, huge benefits for everybody in the family. But I go back to, how do you find the families? Because I know a lot of people watching are going to want to know, how can they be in line to be able to do this kind of thing?
Right. Easily. If they just go to our website, horseboyworld.com.
Okay.
Horseboyworld.com, and there's a camps section on there, and there's a contact email, which is info@horseboyworld.com. We're just in the stages of planning the next one. It'll be in North Carolina in October.
Okay.
And then once we've got the model up and running, I think we're just going to have these things running monthly. Bi-coastal, and gradually as we can train more and more people to do them, because they're not that hard to do.
Okay.
If you've got the good horse expertise and you've got the good surfing expertise, finding the right partners. But I suspect we're going to be running a lot of these. And the main thing is for autism families to remember that you really can get out of that prison. It is very hard to think about going on vacations. I mean, no, it's so stressful to go to a regular campsite or a regular hotel and deal with the stress of mitigating the autism around an environment that isn't set up for the success of the child.
Yeah.
But with these camps, the whole point is that it's all for them.
Yeah.
So there are no judgments. There are no, if your kid is screaming and melting down, it's all right. It's really okay. And the people who are there kind of know what to do, or what not to do.
Awesome.
So info@horseboyworld.com, if people just want to say, okay, I want to sign up for one of these in the coming year, just we'll start creating the email list and gradually work our way through it.
Okay. But your Horseboy is based out of Texas.
We are based out of Austin, Texas, but we operate all over the place. I mean, I'm talking to you from London right now. We have 4 or 5 stables in the UK we work through. We have stables in France and Italy we work through. We've got a number of stables around the USA and Canada.
Well, and I want to take a break, but when we come back, I want to talk about...
We also have a way of educating parents to talk to therapeutic riding barns about how they can improve their game a little bit with autism.
Oops, we've lost him. But you know what? I wanted to take a break anyway, but we're going to get Rupert back, and hopefully we're going to get Rocky on the phone. And I want for Rupert to tell you why he's in Great Britain, what he's getting ready to do with his son, because we got to speak briefly the other day. So we're going to take a break, and during this break, we're going to show the video that they sent us of the camp. So stay tuned. More with Rupert Isaacson when we come back, and hopefully Rocky Rayner. So stick with us.
C-15. Flying Taxi San Francisco events.
This week actually started probably about 1.5 years ago, and Rocky Rayner and I were talking about a way that we could use the expertise that Jack has, combining it with the surf team here in Half Moon Bay. So this week has really been quite a collaboration between the surf team, Indo-Jack Surf Charities, Square Pegs, and then the Horseboy Foundation. And being able to bring it all together in one place and try something new of combining the horse riding with the surfing has just been an incredible experience for all the people involved.
It's just too heavy for Superman to live.
We are in Half Moon Bay, California, and we're putting on a charity surf camp in conjunction with the Half Moon Bay Surf Club, with the Square Peg Foundation and the Horseboy putting together kind of a new program using horses and surfing to connect with special needs kids, namely autism. And so Indo-Jack Surf Charities came out here to sort of run the surf portion of the program and to train the Half Moon Bay Surf Club to do this in the future on their own.
To see the autistic program come here to Half Moon Bay and to get these kids in the water and to get the surf club involved was just an amazing vibe at the beach.
I was so surprised we were able to get them all into wetsuits. That was just amazing, because that was the thing I thought we were going to have the most difficulty with. And then when they got in the wetsuits and they got on the water, it was easy. They just all wanted to surf.
So I'm Rupert Isaacson. I'm the founder and director of the Horseboy Foundation. And I work with autistic people and horses. We're doing our first horse and surf camp today. Over the next couple of days, and this is the first time I've ever gone surfing in my life, but I can really see why people have been using surfing as a therapy for autism. It's very, very, very similar to the effect of the horse. You've got this giant movement underneath you, you've got the magic of the living thing, either the horse or the ocean, you've got the sense of adventure, you have to get over a certain slight fear and discomfort, which then of course boosts your self-confidence. And I've been watching kids out there today who are struggling verbally, who are struggling sensorily. I can see that all the sensory stuff calms down because the movement of the ocean is very similar to the horse. And I've been seeing kids that are barely verbal using complex language, really their intellect really coming to the fore, and all that white noise in the head and all that physical discomfort that a lot of them go through neurologically is being calmed down by the ocean in a very similar way to the way you find it with the horse. I totally see the benefits for kids. I'm an autism dad. My son had an amazing experience out there. He even had a wipeout and had a bad reaction, had to get over it and find his courage again and go out, and he did, and he feels fantastic about it.
The autistic kids, you think they can't do anything, but they were having loads of fun.
But you can't take it to the bank, and you can't take it back.
Using surfing on the surface with kids with physical and mental challenges might seem a little lightweight. You know, people might question, well, what are you doing? You're not curing anything, you're not fixing anything. But what I've learned, and what you'll all learn as you view this, is that there's an element of surfing that helps a child realize that getting knocked down, they can get back up. There's one email that came in this week, the day after we finished, and this was the best day of his life. And if that was all we gave them to give one child the best day of their life, that's worth it.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we have via Skype once again Rupert Isaacson from Horseboy. We're having difficulty getting Rocky Rayner on the phone, but we're still working on it. We have not given up. He's from Half Moon Bay. You just watched a video about this amazing surf camp, and before we went to break, Rocky, I was saying that when we came back, I wanted to talk to you briefly about your son and why you are in Great Britain. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing there and what you're about to do.
Okay, well, I come here to do a couple of things. One is some trainings in Horseboy method, but also my son Rowan, who's now 10, who is autistic, has his own project, and it's called Endangerous, meaning an animal that is both endangered and dangerous. It's his word, and he's, some of you may know that we made a film a few years ago about a journey across Mongolia on horseback we did together. Well, now it's Rowan's turn. He's behind the camera as well as in front of it, and he wants to take us around the world sort of falling in love with the planet, really, looking at these animals and the changing planet through his eyes, through the eyes of a special needs kid. And so we're off to Romania day after tomorrow for our first Endangerous safari, which is going to be European grizzlies, brown bears in the forests of Transylvania, up in Vampire Country, near Castle Browne, which is where Vlad the Impaler lived. And we're going to go film these amazing animals. Rowan is going to film them. We will be filming Rowan filming them. And we will see where this goes. And we're starting it as a web-based television project, which will be going up starting in the fall, September, October, on its own site, endangeroussafaris.com, or people can find it through the horseboyworld.com site. And we're going to start with very short snips, and then gradually grow it, I think, into a proper TV show.
Wonderful.
And I think he's going to take us all over the world. And here's an interesting thing for me is everyone's got their own take on the reasons behind the current autism pandemic. But if, as Temple Grandin and many others say, it's because of a gene-environment interaction, i.e. the world is more toxic than it used to be, are we looking at true autism, or are we looking at, a neurological reaction to certain types of toxicity and so on, that produce autism-like symptoms that also responds to, autism treatments? Then isn't it interesting if someone who's, if you like, a product or a victim of this changing planet is showing us this changing planet and sort of bringing us back to falling in love with our planet again, through and despite, these challenges which have impacted him and us so heavily. So for me, there's a real poetry to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Plus, he's just taking us to see some really cool animals.
Absolutely.
I think for a lot of kids, who are used to seeing the sort of the kids' television type presenters are usually very, very precocious, neurotypical, highly articulate kids, like sort of, Bindio and the daughter of, Steve-O and the Crocodile Hunter and so on. I think people are not used to a sort of vulnerable special needs kid being the one who takes you into the jungle.
Yeah.
And what I know is it will start to change children's perceptions of special needs, because once kids start watching Endangerous, they will very quickly forget within 3 frames that Rowan is autistic, and they'll just be following him to see the lions or to see the bears, to see the elephants or whatever it is we're after. And suddenly they are viewing the sort of hero figure on the television is the weird kid at school. And I think there's a value in this.
I absolutely do too. How old is your son now?
He's 10 now.
Okay, so you're taking him into these places. I mean, my son's 9, and I'm that mom that you were describing earlier, that's stressed and hasn't had any sleep and all those things. So I hear this and I go, that sounds wonderful, but there is the big part of me that goes, you're going to take a 10-year-old into the forest and have him film bears, and isn't there like a danger aspect to this, Rupert?
Not really. I mean, there's probably the real danger is when we put our kids in these metal boxes on wheels, and then we go onto these things called freeways at 70 miles an hour in these metal boxes on wheels. And try to avoid colliding with each other, and we do that every day. Also, you have to remember, my family, I'm English, I live in Texas, but my family's African. I grew up going to and from Africa, and going into the bush, looking at big game was very much a part of my growing up, and it's what kids did. I mean, but you have mechanisms for making sure it's safe, and you do it through guides, and you do it in a very structured way. You don't just, wander up to a bear with a camera and say please,
All right.
Okay. So it's done with guides and so on.
Okay.
And also that's the thing is the guides are usually the communities that are living with these animals, and Rowan is taking us to meet these people as well as the animals around which they live. So it's going to be a fascinating project.
Okay, excited to hear it. And so it strikes, whenever I have the opportunity to talk to a dad, I have to ask, so your child, at what point did you realize that your child kind of worked on a different modality? When did you think that autism was coming? And what was your reaction as a dad who's, you seem like a very go-with-the-flow kind of person who's very in touch with themselves and in touch with the environment. What was it like for you to discover that your child was working on a different system?
Well, in a way, when we found it was autism, there was a sense of relief, because then at least I felt that even if I didn't know what I was working with, I could learn about what I was working with. I knew from 18 months. We both did. And we knew earlier because, you know, he got quite a few words at a year, and then they left him. And I'm married to a professor of psychology who knows what the miles at University of Texas. She knows what the milestones are that a kid should hit, and she's like, man, he's not hitting them, you know. So we were pretty aware pretty early. For me, there was a grief, because I thought, I'm an obsessive horseman. You know, I have always been an obsessive horseman. I'm one of those people who I can be very boring about horses, and I can bore for England. You know, I can be on the English boring team when it comes to horses, and so first I thought I had to give horses up because I thought Rowan wasn't safe around them. And then when he found his own way to my neighbour's quarter horse mare, Betsy, which kicked off the whole Horseboy story, and made his own connection with her, I thought, oh my gosh, he's got the same thing with horses that I do, but I'll never share it with him because it's autism. And luckily, I turned out to be completely wrong. And I think one of the things about growing up in the way that I did, partly South African, partly English, partly Jewish, partly this, partly that, never any one thing, was that I grew up in a real environment of questioning. And I'm a journalist by trade. It's my job to ask questions. So when I was getting the kind of, well, your life's all over and you're going to have to live according to a schedule on a fridge, and by the way, that'll cost you $100,000 a year that you haven't got, I remember thinking, where's the other 50% of the story here? This is way too extreme. I may not know what I'm dealing with yet, but I will learn. And of course, I found that really what Rowan's autism did, once I had gotten through that initial kind of, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? You know, the male, I must fix this thing. And then thinking, actually, hold on a second. This isn't a fix. This is a life. This is a way of being. I'm like, oh, okay, well, now that's interesting. Now, how do, you know, and look, he's sharing the horses. Oh my gosh, now we're riding together and he's starting to speak in the saddle. Okay, the door is open, we can share this, father and son. And then I realized, of course, that what was happening is that my son was showing me a much, much, much better way to live. You know, suddenly I was out on horseback all the time with him. I was out riding the range in Texas with him. I was out adventuring with him, in a much, much more involved way than I probably would if he had been at, you know, mainstream school and so on and so on. And then when his school didn't work out, we are homeschoolers, and you could even say to some degree we're unschoolers. But we've evolved into that. I didn't get into that because I'm, you know, this particular kind of hippie dad with coming into it with these philosophies. I look like a hippie, but really I wear my hair. I never got over. You know, it's terrible, my endless Peter Pan syndrome. And, I know I'm not proud of it, and I don't have any much bone in my body, I can assure you. So the experience of finding, oh my gosh, all these doors are opening to a better life, to a closer life with my son, to a more interesting life. Hell, now we're going across Mongolia together.
Yes.
Who'd have thought? You know. So I very quickly started seeing the beauty of it, and there's another thing too, and I think a lot of parents have this experience, that it's like being in the presence of an enlightened master to be with an autistic child, because of their quiet ego. It seems to me there's many gifts of autism, and there's obviously intellectual gifts and so on in many cases, but this thing of the quiet ego, the neurotypical human, is so beset by the ego and all its attendant mental problems, self-esteem going up and down all the time, and so on and so on, depression, elation, and this endless emotional roller coaster. These kids are born differently, and it's as if they had already spent 30 years doing that spiritual practice, and now we get to hang out with them. And so the question often in my mind, you know, whether it's my son or whether it's kids I work with at the Horseboy Foundation or on the camps, is I know I'm getting a break from my ego while I'm with them, because my mirror neurons in my own brain are not being fired at by, another junior neurotypical human being with his ego or her ego firing at me. And no, I get a complete break from my ego because no one's pushing. So that's therapeutic. Should I be paying my son or these kids $100 an hour as therapists? Perhaps I should. Perhaps in future as well. Because it's darn therapeutic. And I think, so back to the question, there was an initial grief shock fear, but relatively quickly there was this is just interesting. And once you make friends with it in that way, get curious about it, I think the rest sort of follows. It's while one's resisting it and trying to fix it that one's going to be bashing one's head into that wall.
Well, it's certainly interesting to hear you talk and to hear about some of the different things. We've been trying to get Rocky on the phone, and so I think we'll probably do him on a different day and have him talk about the surf aspect of it. But I hear what you're trying to do, and I'm sure that it takes quite a bit of funding to be able to offer this to families. If there are people out there who are interested in what you're doing and would like to donate, what do they need to do?
That's very simple, and we love getting support. Obviously, that enables us to offer the services that we offer. All they have to do is go to our foundation website. We are a registered 501c3 non-profit. All donations are tax deductible. And here's the URL. It's Horseboy Foundation.
Okay.
Or one word, horseboyfoundation.org.
Okay.
If they go to horseboyfoundation.org and they go to the bit on the menu, there's a great big pink donate button. Click on that and you can do it online. And whether it's $1 or $1 million, it's that where it goes is to provide these services for the kids for free. We did this camp for free, for example.
Really amazing.
So that enables the whole thing to happen.
Well, and something that we talk about a lot here is when something is, we use the word reinforcing, when something is really spectacular to a child, we're going to see quite a bit of progress. And we see frequently with animals, and we've seen in the surfing situation, that the kids, when we take them outside of other circumstances, they rise to the occasion. And you saw some tremendous progress from it was a 4-day camp?
Yeah, three nights.
Three nights.
3 nights, 4 days, yeah.
And you saw some tremendous things that happened. Give us just a couple of quick examples of some of the things.
I'll give you a couple of examples. We had one child who was really timid and effectively nonverbal. Come out of his shell to the extent that he was verbally directly telling us what to do, to jump through this wave, now get on the board, do it again, want more, extraordinary.
Yeah.
Another kid who was just so wrapped up in anxious stims that you couldn't really reach him at all. And I think we've all been in that situation.
Yeah.
All of that stimming falling away.
Amazing.
And him coming forward and directly telling us with one-syllable commands what to do. My son Rowan had a massive wipeout on one of the boards. And after having a rather ecstatic time, and had a major regression on the beach. And I thought, oh my gosh, have I blown it now? He got through it, he got over it, he went back out. That evening, my son has many of the kids on the spectrum, he has his rituals. And one of his rituals is when he watches his video at 6 o'clock to 7:30, and the videos rotate. Right now it's Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
We love that. We're huge fans of Wallace and Gromit.
No one is allowed in the room. And he will kick you out, he will slam the door, he'll get very upset. No kids can come in. I was worried what he was going to do on this. He invited the other kids in the camp to come and watch the movie with him.
Wow, that's some social
then
progress.
Chatted
Well, that's wonderful. We're starting to
about
lose
the
you a little bit.
Extraordinary stuff. And like, this is not you. Why aren't you getting all freaked out and kicking us out and making up a... Nope, didn't happen. So those sorts of things often happen on these camps. And you might go through a rocky first day when the kids are in a different environment. And we don't throw anything at them the first day. We just let them acclimatize. We have the horses are there ready if they want them, but we're not going to lay on. We mostly hang out.
Yeah.
And then by the time we're ready to go in the second day, the kids are comfortable and they don't feel rushed and they've had a chance to check it out and do it in their own time. And that seems to be the key, to sort of do it at the kids' pace. Even if you get a bit worried sometimes if it's going to happen. But no major cognitive shifts like this. And then they seem to carry over, you know. We've had other examples. There's a certain type of sensory work we do with a static horse where we'll lay the child on body to body, like I was describing how we did it with the mother earlier. And that's in the horseboy method. And we've had kids fall asleep up there.
Oh, wow.
And there was one kid on a camp who had been up there, who'd never slept for more than 3 hours in his life. And he fell asleep up there. We transferred him to a bed and he slept for 14 hours.
Wow.
His sleep patterns were radically changed for good. We had another kid, you know, becoming verbal up there. So, I mean, these things are not unusual at these camps. Now, that said, you never promise miracles, but you are, at the very least, you're saying to parents, look, come and do something interesting as a family, out in nature together. Why not? Worst thing that can happen is nothing, right?
Right. Well, the worst thing that can happen is you can have some fun and have some time away.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a remarkable thing. And we're out of time, but Rupert, tell us again how we can get to the Horseboy website.
Okay, so the website is horseboyworld.com.
Okay.
That has the camp's information on it. And if people want to write and get more information, the email is info@horseboyworld.com.
Okay.
And if they would like to donate, and goodness knows we can use it, we have a foundation website for our 501c3 nonprofit, and that is horseboyfoundation.org, horseboyfoundation.org. Click on the big pink donate button.
Okay, great. And we'll have Rocky with us on another day. But Rupert, thank you so much for joining us after a long plane ride. We really appreciate it. And good luck to you as you guys move forward. I can't wait to see your son's documentary and see that he was safe, but that he saw the wild and dangerous and endangered animals. My son will look forward to seeing that as well.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. It was an honor.
All right, we're going to take a short break and be back in just a few minutes. Stick with us. Hi, we're here with Sue Cho, and she holds a lot of different jobs and responsibilities at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're going to have her help us with learning about nonverbal imitation and how we teach it to our children. But first, Sue, what do you do at CARD?
I'm a senior clinical supervisor, so I supervise children's cases. I'm also with the training department and provide training to the supervisors, people that are becoming supervisors or current supervisors. And then I also provide workshop services for children all over the world when they don't have access to a CARD site.
Great.
Nonverbal imitation is being able to copy the actions of another person.
You can do nonverbal imitation. What can you then go on to do?
Just about everything, because when people are social beings and we learn what to do by observing other people. When we look at children learning how to play, they are copying things that are going on in their everyday lives.
So how do we go about teaching this?
So when we first teach it, you want to start off at the most concrete level, which is copying the use of an object. You can actually touch it, you can feel it, you can see it. So for example, picking up a telephone. The child has their phone, I have my phone, and I would just pick it up and say, do this, and then the child has to copy by picking up the phone and just putting it up to their ear.
And if they don't do it,
then I would assist them. So I would first show them, do this, and then I would put it in their hand and then hold it up to their ear.
and praise them for when they do that.
And then we also want to make sure too that they're not putting the phone up to their ear when I've asked them to do something else. To start, we're just going to have the phones out, and the only thing that they can pick up is the phone. Then eventually I want to get to the point where I put other things out as well, and that they then realize that even with all these other things out, they're still able to pick up the phone when I pick up the phone. The focus of this lesson is that they observe what I do and then they copy what I did. Then we teach other items too, because we want to teach them to do multiple objects and also eventually doing multiple things with an item. So for example, let's say initially I'm teaching them to pick it up and just hold it up to their head. Maybe I also want them to understand that, oh, you dial the phone. So I might say, do this, and the child picks it up and then pretends to dial. And then eventually we start putting the actions together so they have more of a multiple sequence of activities going on so that we can teach them how to play. So for example, if I have a car, I might teach them that, okay, I'm going to start up the car. Vroom, vroom. The child imitates the sound if they have the capability of doing that. Then I'd say, okay, we're going to roll it over to the store so we both park. And then, okay, now I'm going to crash into the wall. And the child crashes into the wall so that we're able to teach multiple step sequences.
Okay. And it sounds like, again, key is getting preferred items to do this with and making it fun.
Yes.
Not,
most definitely.
Not making it boring.
Yes, we want to make it interesting for the child because then they're more likely to attend and want to do it.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We just finished talking to Rupert Isaacson from Horseboy. We were trying to get Rocky Rayner on the phone, but we're having, I don't know whether it's solar flares or gremlins. Maybe it's the gremlins today. We've had gremlins from time to time, but we're having lots of computer issues. If you've been trying to write us a question in the live mode, it's been on and off, and I apologize. We're trying to fix it, so I don't know if that's why we haven't been able to get Rocky on the phone, but we'll try to have him on another day. So it was about a surf and turf camp that was done. That was a 3-night camp that allowed whole families to come for free and to be able to ride horses and surf. Really an amazing thing. And one of the things that I want to point out, and if I'd had Rupert on the phone longer, I would have said, you know, the thing with ABA, we talk about ABA all the time, applied behavior analysis, and I think that a lot of people have gotten used to the propaganda that ABA is only this thing where you sit down in a room and you only, you know, and I laugh because it is such a misconception. And that when we hear about what they're doing with the kids, with the horses, remember that what I always talk about. Principle number 1 with ABA is that in order for any behavior to be maintained, it has to be reinforcing. And so we're always talking on the show about how do we make the lesson exciting for the child? How do we make the circumstances, how do we power pack things so that they're really reinforcing to the child so that we have buy-in from the child. I love Rupert's talking about, you know, taking the stressed out mom and putting her on the back end of a horse and showing her that it's okay, because, you know, I would show up and be a nervous Nell and think that my child was going to be trampled by the horse. That would be me. And so to lay me on the back of a horse and get me to be calm about that and then offer me a nap, well, you know, you're just hitting all the right spots there, right? So clearly they know what they're doing. But, you know, making it reinforcing for people, whether it's the mom or the child on the autism spectrum, that's key to everything, right? It does lay fertile ground for learning. And I just want to go back to the point that it doesn't all have to be, we talk about DTT, and the fact that DTT is a part of ABA, but it is not the whole thing. It is not the whole thing. And I can tell you that my son had 5 years of ABA, and the things we did and the places we went to make it a fertile ground for learning, oh my goodness. We went on play dates and we went on field trips and we took therapists to museums and we went to grocery stores and, you know, the mundane and the spectacular. And as I said, my son had an opportunity to surf on one occasion. And but it isn't. I don't want you guys to misunderstand. And I loved what Rupert said at the end, that not in all cases are you going to see this tremendous, as he said, the miracles. But for a child who does find this reinforcing, and for a family who finds this reinforcing, you're laying fertile ground for more teaching. I mean, if I said to you, okay, I want you to do something that's really difficult. We're going to take on calculus today, and I realize it's not difficult for everybody, but for me, calculus, okay? We're going to take on calculus today, and we're going to do it in a sterile, cold room, and I'm going to, it's going to be quiet, though. I'm going to have a quiet room, and I'm going to keep giving you opportunities. Then I am going to make some progress, and I might learn the basics of calculus because it's in this controlled environment and whatever. But for me to really be able to do calculus on a regular basis, you're going to have to make it really reinforcing to me. For me personally, I'm really into fireworks, and you're going to have to teach me calculus in relation to fireworks, and then give me the opportunity to shoot the fireworks off, doing my calculus calculations, so that I go, that is so cool, I want to do it again. Right? That's me. Now think about it for your child on the autism spectrum. How are you going to make the lessons really reinforcing? I particularly love that as Rupert was talking, and he was saying, his initial reaction when his child was diagnosed was, one of grief, and that he was so mad about horses, and he thought, oh, this means that not only is my child not going to be mad about horses, but I'm going to have to give it up, and we're never going to be able to have this passion that we share together. And in fact, he found it was quite the opposite. And I think I've shared before on the show that when my husband finally came out of denial, and I remember that, he was having an emotional moment, and I said, well, tell me what is going on. And he had just recently, and I mentioned that, our background was both theater, and my husband is a phenomenal actor. He's a voice actor and stage actor, and he had been to see a production of To Kill a Mockingbird, and of course our son Jem is named after the gem in To Kill a Mockingbird, and my son had gone to see this show, and we were flying a couple of days later, and he sat there and just had this moment, the worst possible moment. But I said, tell me. And he said, I just saw this play, and I realized that he may never know the joy of performing. He may never understand the joy of theater. He may not be somebody who appreciates that. I may never be able to share that with him. And he was having the grief of it. And, over the years, it's been a very interesting thing because my son does enjoy going to performances. And recently, my son decided, we would always ask him if, because when he was very little, he sang and everything was a microphone. And then when autism came, the singing went away. He sang in the kindergarten Christmas concert and that kind of thing, but he wouldn't just spontaneously sing. It was so hard, couldn't get him to sing Old MacDonald with me. He just didn't spontaneously sing. And we went to see Peter Pan, the Kathy Rigby version, and oh my goodness, the change. It was so reinforcing to him. Now, he had this whole framework of things that he had learned, but here was this thing that he saw that was just life-changing to him, quite honestly. And it was so exciting to him, and the kinds of things. And of course, the next morning, my husband and I woke up to hear our son singing Zippity Doo-Dah at the top of his lungs, and so excited. And just very fortuitous that week they sent home with school papers saying, that because he was in the 3rd grade, he could now be in the school choir. And then about 2 days a week after school, and would he and I thought, oh, he's not going to want to give up. That's prime. First of all, we do homework, and then he gets some video game time. He's not going to want to give that up. And he said, oh, yeah, no, I know I won't get to play video games on those days, but I want to go. I want to sing in the choir. There was even we were going to go to Disneyland for his birthday with a whole bunch of relatives, and they were having a one-day performance. He was just going to sing one song with the choir, and I said, well, you can miss that, right? So that we can go to Disneyland. No, Mom, I want to be in the performance. And so we rearranged which days we were going to Disneyland so he could sing with his school choir. And, it is amazing when you find the things that our kids find reinforcing. It's really amazing how hard they will push, how they will overcome obstacles, how they will do whatever they have to do because they are that reinforced. And it's just kind of interesting to me that, you know, in both of these cases, we had dads who thought, okay, I'm not going to be able to share this with my child. And yet, it was the thing ultimately that broke some barriers for both of those kids. I don't know that that's the case for everyone, that the passion of the dad ends up being, you know, the passion of the kid, but it's worth it to think of it in terms of, okay, what am I passionate about, and how could I share this with my child? I know we all have a preconceived notion, but if we let go of that, how could we share it with our child? And I do think that there are so many things that our children find reinforcing. Is it going to be the same for every single child? No. But I certainly have been around horses and other animals, and to see they are gentle giants, and there is something that happens with a lot of our kids, that there is a connection that it's very reinforcing for them. It's very reinforcing for them. And as a parent, it's very reinforcing to watch. Very, very exciting. So think outside the box. Think what can be reinforcing to your kids. And of course, and if you'd like to participate in any of the horseboy camps or the surf and turf camps, you can go to horseboyfoundation.org. You can go to horseboy.com. And that Square Peg Foundation, I know I was on their site a couple of days ago. They had some wonderful testimonials from parents about things that happened on the camp, and some great pictures. We showed that video, which I think was lovely, that they gave to us, but there's some wonderful pictures there. So if you'd like more information about that, do look into that. Okay, I also was going to give you an adaptive tip for this week. Very quickly, the pleasure, we talked earlier about when we toilet train and how there is something that happens, a self-esteem that comes with that. Well, I also want to make the case for chores. I know you might have a child who's so affected on the spectrum that you think to yourself, Shannon, you are speaking Greek. You are absolutely speaking Greek, like that's the last thing that's on our list of things to do. Okay, all right, maybe now is not the moment, but let me just make a case here for a second that there is something that happens, and our children get so much more than we can possibly be aware of, but there is something that happens when the child feels like they're contributing. And you can make it fun. I know I like to sing that song, right? But you can make it fun. They even make now, my son and I saw these at a store the other day, they're dusters that attach to your shoes with Velcro, that have little dusters on the bottom. So you could go and buy 2 pairs, and you and your child could, put the chairs on top of the table and clean the dining room floor while pretending that you're ice skating. I'm just saying, find something and then reinforce your child with something that's meaningful to them. Now, if it's an older child and they have any concept of money, what a great time to talk about money, because you're paying the child for the work that they're doing, and then take them to the store and let them spend at least a portion of it so that they feel the benefit of, look, I did this thing, I got paid, I turned it into this. And you could be teaching about the value of a quarter, teach the value of a dollar, teach the value of a penny, all of those different things, so you can power pack the lesson and make it a whole bunch of things. But if they're not at the point where they understand the concept of money, that's okay. You can save that for a little while later, but always use the words about, okay, now you get paid, right? Pair praise with it, but pay them in some way, whatever their particular currency is. And if it's not sweeping the floor, and look, if it's really, I didn't see what the price was on the little floor sweepers that attach to your feet. If it's too much money, you can make these yourself. You just double up the dish towels, a little duct tape around the shoes, and you're dusting, right? Where there's a will, there's a way, right? Make it fun. Find a way to make the household chores fun. We, do a thing sometimes in our house where we'll make a list of things and see how fast we can get it done. Because I'm all about the fluency training. He can do a lot of things, but doing them fast, we're always working on that, right? So in any case, find a way to include your child in the household chores. Not only will you see some progress that comes from that because they'll take some pride in it, but you have to move in that direction anyway. We all have to move towards the child having some things that they can do independently, that they add to what's happening in the family, that they add to what's happening in the society that is their family. You will see that it makes a difference. Now, if your child's doing really well and they're capable of doing more, wow, how many more things can you work on? You can work on, them making the bed, folding their own clothes, getting them ready for independence down the road, working on the allowance, teaching them how to save for long-term things, how to save for short-term things, power pack lessons in doing chores, and it's good for their self-esteem. Okay. As this show ends, the conversation continues. Let's go over some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us. Emily will start to show them on the screen for you. We're always available through email. I know we had computer problems today, but the email will get to us eventually, so do not despair. You can phone us. I know the phone didn't work today either, but usually it will, and you can also Skype with us. Facebook worked today, so you can still get a hold of us through Facebook, and of course, Twitter was down a couple of days ago, but I think it was a momentary thing, and it's back up and working now. Also want to remind you there are lots of different ways to watch the show. You can be watching us on Blip TV. You can be watching us on YouTube. You can download us for free on iTunes, and we are available on Ustream. I want to remind you that we have opportunities every day, and sometimes we say, I don't have time for that. That's not on my priority list. I'm not going to focus on that, right? And that's when we're in control. That we say, you know what, this is available to me. I'm aware of the fact that it's there, but I choose not to participate in this for whatever reason. I want you to know, though, that when we say, okay, I'm going to choose not to do that, sometimes we're saying no to an opportunity. And we're here every day. And you have the opportunity to participate. You have the opportunity to say, I need some help. I need some help with this very specific thing. Point me in this direction. I just want you to know you don't have to. And we have lots of people who do participate. And if you're somebody who's just watching and enjoying and you don't feel the need to participate, it's okay. But I hope that you're never feeling that you're alone, because you're not. We're here with you. We're here for you. You have no idea the amazing amount of people who are behind you, who are rooting for you, who know you can do this, that you can be a really efficient, effective member of a child's team to have them make the most progress that they possibly can. You're showing up on a regular basis for your child, and we're there rooting for you. And we're here waiting when you need us, when you need something specific, when you need information, when you have a question, we're here for you. And I just want to remind you always, because I know, there's that time of night when you go, I am alone, right? Been there, done that. But I want you to know that's just what it feels like. That's not what it is. Please take advantage when you do need us and ask us to hunt down some information for you. We're going to be back tomorrow, and we've got some really exciting guests for you that are going to wow you and blow your doors off. Especially at 11 o'clock. It's a surprise. Don't want to even tell you. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug for us. Bye-bye for now.